All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're going to go ahead and get started. I show it is right at 8:30 Mountain Time. So, Ron, let's consider it started. In the room, we have Greg, Rick, myself from the board. We have Gary, Joe, Steve, Alyssa, Dave.
Okay.
Well, online, we have Ron, Eric, Kathy, and we have Boyd on a conference line. So that should cover the board.
I believe we have a quorum.
Okay. Quorum is certified.
That's quick.
Approval of the minutes.
Yes, we completed the minutes, sent those out. There was a small change. Eric had a couple recommendations, so we went ahead and made those minor changes. It was on the contractor policy, draft policy that we were looking at. So that's been approved. We distributed the meeting the minutes, so we should be good to go. I just need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Rick makes a motion. Greg second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. I'm going to change this up just a little bit, Steve, if that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and do the president's report first before we do anything else.
Vote to approve the minutes. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got to vote on the minutes. Thank you. I'm going to start calling you John. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Ron, Eric, Kathy, you in favor?
Eric says yes.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We got 7.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, keep me on track. All right. Well, again, I want to welcome everybody. Needless to say, this has been an interesting 3 months. I appreciate everybody's patience and understanding with everything that we have gone through relative to managing through this COVID situation. I certainly hope that those of you on the phone or anybody hearing this in a recording after the fact that everybody is healthy at home and you're surviving this okay. We have had extraordinary circumstances over the last 3 or 4 years, whether it be the lodge shutting down to be remodeled, the fire, now the COVID situation, and we've always seemed to figure out how to solve through this. This one has been a lot different than the previous challenges that we've had to handle. But I think, and I want to applaud the staff publicly for helping get us through this. I know it probably hasn't been easy, especially most of us aren't on site for this, and you guys are having to handle it here. So I will tell you that the signage around the property is very clear around people wearing masks. The lobby area is very well taped off to make sure that people don't get close. Overall, I think everybody did an astounding job. At this stage, we're kind of in the early stages of a reopening. That hasn't really changed the dynamic relative to the masks. I think we'll continue to monitor both the governor's announcements here as well as the state and local announcements. We did open up the rental program effective the 22nd, right? Yeah, 22nd.
A week ago today.
Yeah. So surprisingly decent number of cars here, more than I expected when I got here. So I do suspect that we'll continue to see continual relaxations as we move forward and kind of understand the dynamic. For those of you who are remote, I flew in yesterday, walked through town. Technically, restaurants opened here on Wednesday. It certainly didn't look much like restaurants were open yesterday at any scale. I suspect that this weekend and going into next week, you'll start to see some of them begin to open up, and we'll see restrictions lifted more and more. So life does seem to be returning to normal a bit, but it is certainly going to be there's going to be a period of transition. I don't think the train's running yet, so there's definitely going to be changes that happen over time. couple of things a couple of changes that I wanted to share with everyone. Steve notified us about 30 days ago, 45 days ago, that due to situations relative to COVID, he tendered his resignation. He's going to go back and be closer to family. As circumstances happen to align nicely for us, Steve's done a great job of getting everything off the ground here, getting procedures in place. We had an opportunity that presented itself literally the same day that Steve notified me of his announcement. Joe notified me that that Alyssa Oliger had left our accounting firm. Am I not pronouncing it right?
Alyssa Oliger.
Oliger.
Oh, it is Oliger. Okay, well, I had the person right.
All right. I'm totally clueless for my last 3 months. So
You're only half there.
he's happened to be available. We had a phone call with her, and given her long and tenured history with our association, we talked to her about joining and taking a slightly different role than what Steve had. I have labeled it a business manager more so than a full, GM or facilities manager. Alyssa, as everyone knows, has managed our accounting functions for how long? 18 years. So she knows this place better than probably anybody in this room, absent maybe Joe and
Dave.
And Dave. At any rate, we came to an agreement. She started 2 weeks ago. Yep. So she has been on board, wrapping her arms around everything here, doing some transitional things with Steve. Steve will be leaving the property on June 12th. He will stay on for through the end of the month in a consulting role. We may, or not in a consulting role. He'll still be under employment, working remotely, and we may decide to extend a consulting role for a period of time as well. So that transpired, and everything is done, contracted, set up, and we're off and running. Another change that I'll let you announce. I'll let Joe handle the accounting. We did make some changes with our accountant, and not as a result of this, just happenstance. Since Alyssa's going to be here, it made more sense to have her, manage the accounting functions as an employee here than having our accounting firm do it. So Joe will handle that in our financial report. One other announcement that I wanted to make. I think everybody remembers Ann Dixon. Ann was on the board a few years ago. She's been helping us with marketing. She's the one who helps me with the newsletter. She's been doing a lot of the social media posts. She did a lot of the photos, helped facilitate getting the photos that have since been posted on the Vacation Rentals website. We updated all those photos. She offered to start a private Tamarron Facebook page, which I thought made some sense. So we do now have a Tamarron Facebook page. It's Tamarron Owners, and I can pull it up and give it the exact name. But if you search for Tamarron Owners on Facebook, if you are a Facebook user, you will find a Tamarron Owners private Facebook page. That is active. It's only got a few users on it. I think it's just Heather and I. Joe, did you join?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, Joe's on. Rick did. Okay, so we've got a few folks from the board on. I hadn't made a formal announcement. I was planning on doing it in the next newsletter, and we'll also obviously doing it today. So I'd encourage everyone to join that. We will send out a notification with that address so that people can join directly. There are some rules on there. I'd encourage everybody to read them. This is a private owners page. It's not intended to be shared with renters. It's not intended to be shared with third parties. We will police it accordingly. We also want it to be positive. We don't want to be talking about staff or issues here. We want it to be a place that we can share our share our photos, share our stories, promote activities that are going on here. Thanks, Rick. Rick just shared it with me. It's, if you search on Facebook, it's Tamarron Association of Condominium Owners. It's a private group. Right now we got 9 members. Thank you. So again, it's an experiment. I've asked Ann to police it as an independent third party so that we have somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in here in Tamarron kind of saying, hey, that's appropriate, that's not appropriate. We're going to try it out, see how it works. Hopefully everybody will leverage it as a positive experience, and we'll ensure that we use it for what it's intended for. So any questions for everybody in the room on that? Have any questions online yet? Okay. All right. A few ground rules since this is 100% online. First, I want to thank everybody for joining online. Sorry we could not do it in person. We'll have to figure out what we do in September. We're not in any position to make that decision today. But a few ground rules for today. Please submit your questions by chat. We're going to do our best to manage everything by chat today. Chaos ensues. Anybody that has a day job like me and does a lot of conference calls or does WebExes and webinars, chaos ensues when everybody's chiming in online, and especially when you can't see everybody. So we're going to do our best. To the extent we need to have discussions, we'll open up the line accordingly. We can see your questions here in the chat room, so we will address those as we need to. I already see some questions. One is about HOA fees. We are, and we'll address that here in a minute. The other was an update on window approval. Have that, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the Don Carter question on HOA fees? Can you read that?
How about a way to pay HOA fees online?
Yeah, I'll address that.
Yeah. So, nothing else. I'm going to move forward with the agenda. And the next item on the agenda was action taken without a meeting. Steve, you want to address that?
What's that?
I think you're next, addressing actions taken without a meeting.
Yeah, okay. There were none.
There were none. Okay. That kind of meeting. Okay. Joe, review of financials.
Okay. Gary, would you put up the financial report so that the folks online can see it? And just, sorry. Would you pass those around for those of you, for everybody in the room? Here, Gary.
Did you sanitize it?
Yeah, right. Ask Elisa, she brought them.
Macy, you got a copy back there?
I do.
Dave, do you have a copy or?
Is it the same as yesterday?
Same as yesterday.
I've got one.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so what you're looking at is the balance sheet. We're reporting through the end of the month, April, so the first 4 months of the year, 2020. Scroll that up about 7 or 8 lines, Gary, so I can see all of the assets. Well, down, I guess, yeah. Okay, yeah, right there, okay. So current assets, we've got about $250,000 in the bank in our general fund. The rental program's got some money in there. Our reserves, 3 reserve accounts, 103, 107, and 108, total up to $732,556 that we have in our permanent reserves in 3 different banking institutions. I have some things about that, some additional things to talk about at that. I'll do that at the end of the report as an add-on. Accounts receivable looks a little bit high at this time of the year. It always does, because that's right at April, puts us right at the end of a billings due period from owners, HOA assessments, And so we typically get a lot of mailed in payments that come right after the end of the month. This year was no exception. Just to give you an idea of the significance of that or the impact of that is today our accounts receivable is $84,000. So a big difference there. Scroll down, Gary. Fixed assets. Yeah. Okay. Right there. Just a note, account 150, that includes units A through N and 115. That includes the space that we're in right now, plus all of the other common spaces, the restaurant, the maintenance shop, the storage rooms, storage facilities, and last year we purchased Unit 110, so Unit 110 is part of that as well.
Hey, do we do a mark to market on those? Just out of
Who
curiosity.
to what?
A mark to market. In other words, do we have Julie come in and say, hey, you guys bought it for X, it's now worth Y?
We haven't done that before, but if you, I don't know how we would put value on these.
No, I know.
I mean, there's assessed valuations. We can get those off our our tax bills, but of course, assessed valuation and market value are never the same thing.
That just means we're.
I mean, if you want, I can talk to Julie about it and see if we can get it.
Yeah, just curious.
Like that. I mean, right now it's.
I mean, if anything else, we're
it's on the books.
underreporting,
It's on the books at almost $1 million.
Yeah.
So. Scroll down to liabilities, Gary. I always get a question on deferred revenue, account 240. This represents May and June's the last 2 months of the first quarter, which has already been billed, but because we haven't got through there yet, we haven't earned it yet. So it's counted as deferred revenues. So that's why that's there. It's a general accounting principle thing that you have to do. So that covers it for the balance sheet. Go to the first page of the income statement, okay? So you're looking at 3 columns here. The first column is the first 4 months of the year actuals. Second column is generally 1/12 of the year's budget times 4 or 4 months. We are in the process of starting to make some seasonal adjustments on this because we recognize that in a lot of cases, we don't start spending the money. We don't spend the money equally over a 12-month period. So when you try to compare column 1 and column 2, you see big differences, and you'll see that throughout here. So we're going to be working on that to try to make that line up a little better so the financial reports as we go through the year have a little more meaningful look to them rather than waiting all the way to the end of the year when everything comes together. And then the third column, of course, is just the full annual budget for each of those. So looking at income, the top category, the assessment fees are right on the money. Maintenance revenue is a little bit down. That's a combination of annual lag that I was talking about. We tend not to have as much maintenance revenue during the winter season and during the shoulder. March, April, April's a shoulder season month. And then, of course, we've got the COVID-19 effect. We had the rental program shut down for the entire month of April and part of March. And so we didn't have a lot of guests here on property, a lot of people on property, so fewer maintenance calls. Looking down through there, service and collection fees, that's down. I'll comment that we waived due to the COVID-19 situation, we waived the April and May, anybody who was late on their assessments or who had a balance due, we waived the late fees and the interest on those. Board, I'm going to be talking to the board later on. We want to decide whether or not we want to continue that through June, or because things are starting to normalize, should we end that?
Yeah, and that's my personal opinion is and we can talk about executive session, or I might as well just address it here. I think I think we return it to normal and we handle it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
I mean, there's certainly unemployment issues. There are things that we may or may not be aware of.
For the record, we had a grand total of 4 owners send in questions about that.
Okay.
And our response was that we're going to waive them on a month-to-month basis going forward till we see things normalize. And then the board hasn't made a policy on it. Didn't think we need to because it's a short-term situation, and we'll address it as it comes.
Yeah,
So,
I think we handle it on a case-by-case basis. Payment plans are fine. I don't have any problem waiving penalties for that kind of thing if there's a hardship.
yeah, delinquencies are up. I mean, as expected.
Yeah.
We've got a few more folks who are normally paid up regularly that at this point in time are still unpaid on their second quarter, about 18 or 20 owners.
Yeah, well, I think the rental program probably hurt some of them too.
Yeah, and then there's the chronic ones that we have and that we're facing all the time, and so and we'll discuss all that in executive session. We can't name names here.
Got it.
Yep. So other than that, revenues are a little bit down to total, and a couple of reasons why in the columns there. Administrative expenses, everything there is pretty much on. Legal fees are way down, so this is a really good thing. We're not paying our lawyer to do his hourly fee as much as we had expected.
Oh, yeah.
However, we'll be talking later on about the water and sewer issues that we have with our provider, Elbert Creek Water Company, that's a subsidiary of Glacier, and a lot going on there. And I believe we're going to have quite a bit of legal work involved in that going forward. So we may end up spending at or near budget as the year goes on. Auditing and consulting fees is down. That'll even up when we do our audit this year. This is an annual audit year versus a review, and that costs us about $5,000 or $6,000. So that'll even that up. Outside of that everything else there looks pretty normal. 600 accounts operations. Scroll down, Gary. Yeah, there we go. Building maintenance is down. Again, a little bit of effect from the COVID-19 situation. Also, we've had some reduced staff in the maintenance department, and there's always the winter effect. We don't tend to do much outside stuff under the buildings and things like that in the wintertime when there's snow on the ground. So that should catch up later on as we move through the year. Snow removal for the first time in a couple of years looks really good. As you all know, we spent way over budget on snow removal last year, so that's looking good so far this year. Roof repairs, that's stuff we do when the weather's nice, so we haven't done much of that yet. Same thing with grounds. All of the exterior maintenance work, again, the window washing, that's going to be done this month, so we'll be getting that done. Let's see. The only other one on there that's on this page that's looks out of line is the computer, copier, and office supplies, account 652. Main reason for that is we purchased 3 computers this year for the offices, new computers, and also we changed our IT services contract back to a fellow that we had years ago, Norm Pope. His company's name is Digirati. Did really good work for us. He worked for Glacier Club for a long time and as an employee there, and so he's back doing our IT services, takes care of all of our office computers, keeps them up to date, and so forth. And we paid his full year service contract fee in January. Next page. Let's see, fogged windows, 662. That's a summer thing, and the carpet cleaning in the lodge, that's been done. It just hasn't been billed yet. Salaries are down a little bit. Our housekeeper, who was doing the lodge housekeeping, resigned. So we haven't had that salary for how long, Dave?
In a few months.
A couple of months, yeah. Okay. And we're going to be hiring somebody to do that, but we think on a contract basis. And then we're a couple of months short on a maintenance hand as well, and both of those positions we're going to be putting out there for hire. Utilities, for the first time in a long time, our satellite TV and our internet and telephone are right on the money. We're well into our contracts with Groove and Cedar Networks, and so all that's been pretty stabilized now. Electricity looks high. That's the winter effect again, because we spend a lot more for heating of the lodge common areas and the under the outside plumbing in the heat tapes in the outlying areas. So all that said, we're actually looking pretty good. We're under budget total for the year to date, and everything looks pretty good. Capital. Income on the capital side is right where it's supposed to be, as expected. Haven't done much yet. 820, we paid half of the South Tower elevator upgrade that'll happen this fall. That was a sort of a deposit, and I guess it wasn't half. It was. I thought wasn't that supposed to be half? Or
No, that's Tyson Cross. We still have a lot of.
Oh, all the internal stuff. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. 803. It's if that's High Point parking lot reseal, not Pinecone. For anybody that's interested. So High Point will be getting its resurfacing of its parking lot this year. Are we going to do that in the fall, then?
Yeah.
Yeah. The lodge irrigation, 819, the 3 islands right adjacent to the porte-cochere and across the parking lot to the west from there. Haven't had landscape irrigation since the south end of the lodge building was torn down and those lines were cut. So we're replacing all of that now. Also, as part of that project, the unplanned capital expenses, 830, part of that's going to be the electric vehicle charging station, and we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone by putting the electrical lines in those trenches that we dug to put in the irrigation. So that's pretty much it there. It's pretty much a lot of zero. You see a lot of zeros, and a lot of those will fill in as we move through the summer and into the fall. Permanent reserves, as I mentioned earlier, our total reserve balance is $732,556 today. We expect to put an additional $108,982 into reserves this year. However, we are also going to spend $191,000 out of reserves for the South Elevator project. So that's going to leave us with a projected balance in our reserves of a lot less than we have now at $618,629. And then lastly, the rental program. Expenses are right on the money pretty much for everything in the rental, in the front desk and rental program account. And again, this account mainly funds the front desk, keeps the employees there and keeps it running for everybody's benefit, owners, guests, etc. The only thing that's off right now is the revenues because the rental program was shut down from about March. When did we actually shut down? March 23rd, March 20th?
Right around here.
Yeah. So so it's been shut down for about 2 months, a little over 2 months, or had been. So hopefully that'll right itself. But I think there's going to be a report later on from Heather.
Heather's here.
Oh, okay, there she is. Yeah, and I think she's got some projections that will tell you how that's going to turn out. So that's the financial report, and I've got a couple of other additions, a couple other things to consider here. Our reserves, as you know, our reserves are split up into 3 banking institutions. We have about 1/3 of it at the Bank of the San Juans in Durango in a money market account. The other 2/3, 1/3 each, are split into 2 sets of laddered CD accounts, one at First Internet Bank of Indiana, and the second one at Stearns Bank in Minneapolis. The way we set those up, if you remember previous reports, was that we initially bought 1 each or 2 each of 6, 12, 18, and 24-month CD instruments, with the plan being that as the shorter term instruments reached maturity, they would be converted to 24-month instruments, so that eventually we'd have all 24-month instruments at each bank coming to maturity in every 6 months. So then they'd roll over. So 2 years worth of 24-month CDs. The last shorter term CD at Stearns Bank came due on May 26th, and we have to do something with it within 10 days of that, so next week. Problem is, when interest rates were rising, we were getting anywhere between 2 and 2.5% interest on all of our CDs. Interest rates have come down across all markets in the last several months, and right now the best rate you can get on a 24-month CD is about 1.4. However, Stearns Bank, in their infinite wisdom, has informed me that their 24-month CD rate is 0.5%. So we have to make a decision on whether we want to stay with that bank, go through this process all again at another bank, or let that money just sit in their money market account, which carries the same amount of interest, which I don't understand. I'm not a banker. Maybe Boyd can help us with that. But anyway, I've looked into a couple other banks, and there are some out there that are offering, like I said, the 1.3 to 1.4%. So we need to make a decision on that, and we don't have to do it today, but that's something that has to be looked at. The only other thing on the financials, let me make sure here. With this management change we're doing, we're going to need to pretty much totally reset our bank signers. We have to decide who's going to be authorized to sign checks. My suggestion is going to be that the board president, the board treasurer, and Elisa be the signers on our checks. we need two signers, and one of them always has to be
Right.
an officer. So, that's going to be my suggestion.
Okay.
And I think we have to vote on that because when we go to do these CDs, these CD renewals, the banking institutions want
A board.
a board action,
Yeah.
a print, so it needs to show in the minutes for Ron. So I can't make a motion. I'm not a board member, but I'd like to see a motion made to have the board president, the board treasurer, and our HOA business manager be designated as the check signers
For operating.
for the operating account for all of our accounts.
Well, you might run into a problem with reserve accounts.
With reserve accounts,
May need 2 board members.
two board, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's do it that way then.
Yeah.
For the operating accounts, the 3 that I designated, and for the reserves, 2 board members. So we'd have to add a second board member if the treasurer wasn't a board member.
We don't need to designate the members today. We just need to indicate the parties.
The
not
parties.
Not the individuals.
Right.
Okay, we got a motion?
I'll make the motion as described by Joe. We designate the president, treasurer, property manager, and 1 additional board member
For the operating
for the
accounts.
operating.
And then for the
And
reserves,
for the reserves, the 4 people.
well,
The 3.
sans the business manager.
Yeah. I'll second that.
Okay, this is Eric.
Wait, you can discuss.
Joe, our current requirement is that it takes 2 signatures, right? We're not changing that, just to make it clear for everybody listening.
Correct.
Yeah.
2 signatures.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Just formally designating the people.
This just sets up who are the signers, who are the authorized signers.
Any other discussion from the board? Any questions online that we need to be aware of? As it relates to that, I don't want to get into other issues now.
No.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ron?
I think he might have been stepped.
Got it. 7-0. Got it.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't hear your voice, I think, Ron. So if you're a yes, it's a 7.
So. Okay, the last thing I have on having to do with financial reports and our fiduciary business is, as Scott indicated earlier, we have a management change going on. That's also necessitated a change in our relationship with our CPA firm, Elliott Meadows. Elisa was a former employee of Elliott Meadows and was doing all our bookkeeping, accounts payable, accounts receivable, banking, handling all of that. She's now handling that as an employee of the association's business manager. So I sent a notice to Tommy Meadows 3 weeks ago, notifying him that we would be terminating our current relationship with the accounting firm. However, we wanted to continue a relationship with him, with his firm, to perform specific functions, that being quarterly review of our financial reports prior to each board meeting, interfacing with our auditor, providing all necessary information to our auditor reviewer on an annual basis so that he can perform his work, and thirdly, doing our HOA income tax returns. And Tommy has agreed to that verbally, and he's going to be presenting us with an engagement letter proposal, and I expect that to be completed within the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, that's it on that.
So one thing I'll add, just in the event there are questions regarding this, while the management change was somewhat unexpected, the way this whole thing has played out, it does have a positive impact ultimately to the balance sheet because of the changes to the accounting functionalities that we've had. We've been paying the accounting firm roughly 60 grand a year.
60,000 a year. Yeah.
So certainly having a Lisa on site and as an employee changes the cost structure associated with us paying for those fees. So it is a positive effect, a pretty substantial positive effect.
Well, considering that Steve's resigned.
Yeah, and with we obviously Steve's salary will go away over time. Lisa's under contract, but the biggest change is relative to the cost of the third-party account. So while we will still have some costs to Tommy Meadows as it relates to the quarterly reviews and the audits, it drops considerably. So
2,500 a year.
Yeah.
Estimated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lisa's
again,
gonna want a $2,500 a year raise.
You think?
I think that's a given, just like that.
Thanks for your input, Gary.
duly noted.
What is it? Thanks for sharing.
What about the question that came in for online payment?
Oh, yeah. Good. Thanks for reminding me. So for the person that asked about online bill payments, we're actually looking at a package right now, an HOA financial management package. No guarantees that we're going to do it. We're looking at it. That may help us facilitate that. Currently, the only way we can facilitate online bill payment, I do it. I do it through my bank. It's paid directly out of ACH payment out of my checking account, and my dues are paid every quarter based that way. It is a variable amount sometimes because if you have maintenance fees, so you have to monitor it. So it's not, might have to adjust the amount during the year, but that's just a function that has to be performed. I've also had many times I've had owners ask about being able to pay their dues by a credit card. Well, the main reason we can't do that is because credit card companies charge with about an average of about a 2.5% fee on the 2.5–3% fee on a credit card transaction, which we would either have to absorb or add to owners' dues. And whenever I've told owners that we can do that, but we're going to up your dues by 3%, nobody's ever wanted to do that. So that's the answer to that question. I hope it answers the question.
So if I can chime in, the program that the board's looking at and just got a response from a user of that particular program who was incredibly happy with said program. It does allow you to go online and set up an ACH electronic payment. And if you're in Belgium and you forgot to pay your association assessment, you can pay it with a credit card. We stay out of the middle. It's actually they're going to charge you 2.5% to charge your credit card to pay your assessment. So this particular program is just going to be lightning quick in that regard for people to just various methods of paying their assessments. And it's just going to be a great deal. They can go online. They can look to see what their balance is. So we'll talk about that program a little bit more later. But it's for the amount of money that we're paying, $150 per month. It's a dynamite deal.
Okay, a couple questions. Jerry has a few questions. Will Lisa have access to accounting software she had at Elliott Meadows?
Yes.
Yes.
Same platform. Nothing's changed. We didn't have to buy a new software package. We already had it.
And to dovetail, she uses QuickBooks. She has QuickBooks. She'll maintain QuickBooks until such time as a new program is found. This program that we're looking at will import QuickBooks. We will send our QuickBooks to their office, and they will import it into the new program for no cost. The same thing with our Excel spreadsheet owners list. We will send them that. So, and a lot of times when you open up a new program, you have to put all the data into that program. huge amount of energy and effort. With this program that we're looking at, those two issues are moot. They'll do it for free, and so it goes right from QuickBooks into their program.
And you're going to cover all that later.
Yeah.
Okay. But to get back to that question and just to answer it more succinctly, Elisa's functions regarding bookkeeping, banking, accounts receivable, and accounts payable, nothing changes.
And then Jerry had another question about the backing of the CPA. We will still have our
Yes. Yep.
CPA audit as we always have.
Yeah, well, we're still going to have Tommy Meadows reviewing our financial reports
That will be done quarterly.
and we'll still have the third-party CPA for Todd Becksted's firm in Grand Junction will continue to be our reviewer/auditor. Yep.
Okay.
Nothing's changed on those ones either.
And then Chris and Alan have a question. They must not be together because they're asking the same question. As it relates to a general manager, we're not going to be hiring another general manager. What we basically did was established a list of responsibilities that Elisa would be assuming, and the vast majority of them are, well, for all intents and purposes, it's everything other than maintenance. Dave's still here. Dave will continue to handle the maintenance functions. We will be having discussions with Dave ongoing to begin looking to find a replacement for Dave when he wants to step down. That process hasn't really started, but that it is something that we do recognize we need to solve for, and it's nothing that isn't on our radar. So, and then it's a question about the Facebook post. I think Gary is typing it in now, so you should have that in a minute. I think that's all the questions.
And I'm finished.
And Joe's finished. Thank you, Joe. Steve, did you have anything to update on Glacier?
So about a month ago, we had a break in the parking lot.
That would be a water break.
Water break. So they turned off the water to the lodge, which ruffled some feathers with some folks. We got it posted on the internet, got posted on the door saying the water's going to be off for a while. We're working on, Glacier Club's working on a leak. Got a small Kubota. The small Kubotas kept digging and digging. They brought in a huge shovel scoop and continued to dig 12 feet down until 4 in the morning, until they finally got the repair repaired and back online. Just and away we go. So it was down from 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Where exactly was the break?
Right at the entrance.
South Tower, Central Tower entrance?
No, right down here at the entrance of the parking lot. So right at the corner where you come into the portico.
Where they just poured that sidewalk yesterday.
So.
Oh, right over there?
Yeah.
And where was and what was the nature of the blacktop addition in the entrance to the owner storage? What was going on there?
Just a repair of it.
Just to repair
a crummy piece of.
Just repairing the asphalt?
Yes, but we're also trying to correct flow. Real heavy rains that would slow down.
Oh, okay. Changing the slope?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was kind of a temporary concrete, so it took care of two problems with that.
All right.
And so Alyssa has been introduced to Anna over here at Glacier. So we had a little conversation between the three of us talking about the siding and the screen wall around the air conditioners.
Right back here.
Yeah. So it's on her list.
Who now?
Anna.
Anna who?
Anna Corona.
She's water and sewer. What's she have to do with that?
She's the one that we were directed to.
Yeah.
Really?
That she was going to facilitate the repair of that site. Yeah.
She works for ECWC though.
I don't know.
She's got some sort of maintenance title.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought she was a water company employee.
Okay.
So hopefully we can.
Well, whatever.
We got the relationship started. It's a maintenance issue, but it's nice to have.
Yeah.
Business manager.
And they're responsive to that?
Well, they're responsible, but it's like it's on the list. We don't know what list, and we don't know when that's going to.
Yeah. This is one of those things that goes back to. It was promised by.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim wasn't aware of it when we brought it to his attention.
Yeah.
So he said
It was promised by Bob Berkman and Bill Rico.
Gary may have,
for what those promises are worth.
Gary may have more on Glacier Club's, gym facilities.
As far as we know, at the moment, members can use it. Short-term guests cannot. Not until,
Short-term guests can't use the facility,
Nope.
but they're not being charged a resort fee either.
right.
Yeah.
And we don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah, and it's a reservation thing, so there's very limited access to it. So even if we started charging them the fee and they couldn't get in because the reservations filled up too quickly, we'd be in a pickle.
The only thing is they limit it to 10 people. Now, not that I've been over there a whole lot, but everybody I talk to who goes in there says there's never 10 people.
No, I've never seen 10
Whether you
people in there.
reserve, whether you make a reservation or not, there's not 10 people.
Is that,
Whenever I've used the weight, I tend to use the weight room, not the machines.
Yeah.
There might be 3 or 4 people up there in the machines, and I'll be the only one using the weights.
so is
Except
that
when
it?
Greg was down there.
Is that a 25% capacity? Because I was in there this morning, 10 people. They should be able to have more than 10 people in there.
Yeah, you would, 25% you would think, but for some reason they picked that arbitrary number.
I think they're using the max gathering number, which is 10 people.
Is that what they're doing?
Ah,
Okay.
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 That's
Well,
it.
we know that that's going to be a transitional item. So, okay. Anything else?
Nope. So Joe, do we have anything on internet, television?
Not much.
No.
The only thing I would say is, well, a couple things. And I think this is the last time we need this on the agenda, by the way, because everything's pretty stabilized. CenturyLink, I think Gary, we've finally cut the cord with CenturyLink. We were getting a bill
Yes.
for the 911 service and getting that ported over from CenturyLink to in the Intrado database, whatever that is, something up there in the stratosphere, so that it was coming through Cedar Networks and our phone system rather than somehow being routed through CenturyLink. So that's all done. If we get another bill, we're not paying it, Gary.
Fine by me.
Yeah. On a TV,
Tell the person who pays the bills.
right? He knows we've had the discussion. And the only other thing on the satellite TV, to everybody's happiness, I think we're starting to see the Denver locals appear on our system. You can get Fox, the Fox local, Fox network on channel 31, and I think you can get ABC on, what is it, 17?
Yeah.
17. And
I watched that crappy Albuquerque
yeah,
this morning.
so you have an option if you don't want to watch Albuquerque sports and politics.
Whoa.
Wait
and
for
other
somebody,
stuff.
John, man.
You don't have
Hey,
to.
where's my backup? Where's Jerry?
But
We're both here in Albuquerque.
But the Albuquerque locals are still there.
Yeah.
So you prefer those, you can still watch them.
I have to get my fix from the weather.
Albuquerque carried the Dallas Cowboys, so.
You know, we don't want to hear your politics though.
Oh, geez, don't get me started.
Anyway, so that's it. And I think our TV, internet, telephone, the whole package is really well and stabilized now. We're getting it from third parties that we picked. We're not getting it from Glacier anymore. That's been a while. And the financial side of it is all balanced. So, and the price is right.
The only thing I'd say, and we get these calls occasionally, and Cody has to go out and do this. If you unplug your receiver or your DVR and you're gone for a while, and you feel you're going to save money, you plug it back in. You haven't gotten updates and it's not activated. You have to call either Groove or DirecTV and have them activated. So make sure that you have the card number so that you can tell them the card number so that they can activate yours. What we try to do, Cody's pretty good about once a month calling Groove and having them ping the whole property, and that will automatically update those. But if you have yours unplugged, it's not going to get updated.
And leaving that DVR or that, especially the non-DVR box plugged in, it only costs you a couple bucks a year. I mean, it's not much.
It's pennies a month.
Yeah.
Okay, we have anything on insurance? I don't think so. Oh, we got architecture review
Yeah.
next.
We do have one request. It's unit 728. And what they would like to do is add 2 windows, one off the dining room and one upper window in the stucco. And you can see there's an open area next to the side of the unit. There is a unit that it faces, but that unit already has windows added in. So similar to these, so there shouldn't be any issues there.
As the question is always becomes has the adjacent owner been contacted?
The adjacent owner has not been contacted yet, but that's what I'm saying. They have already had windows such as this added to their unit.
Well, what I'll
So-
say about that is when that owner added the windows, there was no windows there.
Yeah.
So they weren't theoretically able to see into that unit.
Yeah.
Now, when you add windows on this one, then they both can theoretically see in.
Yeah.
So that owner does need to be asked if it's okay.
And Dave and I have already discussed that.
Yeah.
So,
Fuzzy Hale.
Huh?
Fuzzy Hale.
This is Dan Noonan, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
That's my unit number 728. I have talked to Tom Campbell. While I don't have a written confirmation, I did share with him what I was going to do. If you look at the elevation of the window, the clear story window in the living room, no one can see out of that. It's up too high. It would be the small window that's going to be 26 inches by maybe 36 to 48 inches, depending on what the final design of my wife's kitchen is going to be. And then also one other edification, the window in the living room, which you cannot view out of, may end up being slightly frosted to keep the UV rays out. So you won't have an easy visual if you climbed up on the ladder to look out.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
anyway, I make a motion that we approve the request for the windows, subject to confirmation from the adjacent owner.
Got a second?
I'll second.
We'll let Ron second this time.
Rick, can you send me that information electronically?
Oh, do something.
Sure, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, any discussions? This is pretty typical, so. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Eric, we got you?
Yes, you do.
Okay, all right. So that would be.
7-0.
All right, so that is done. I know we had insurance on there, but I don't know if we have anything to share.
There's nothing to report on insurance,
Okay.
really.
Okay, next is rules and regs.
Outstanding. Have two items here. Actually, well, I guess I got one for new business. I'll wait for that, but let me go over what we got right now. We had the legal look over our fine policy regarding fines, complaints, and then the final outcome of those complaints and how we document that. There were a couple of cleanup things that were done in the policy, but basically what we have stands and appears to be working well. Basically, you have a complaint come in that's documented. We'll then investigate what the complaint involves, and then if a fine is issued, we'll wait and issue that fine at the end of the process. The person that has received the complaint has 15 days after the initial complaint was received to request a hearing, and at that point we'll review the information again and then have the Rules and Regulations Committee make a final decision. So we've only had one of these hearings in the last 3 years, so it doesn't happen often, but we want to maintain a policy that's workable and certainly legal, and we've done that. And I think the feedback again from Christina was just some cleanup items, and she thought overall the policy was good, was stable. So that change was made. I sent this out to the board, I guess it was about a week ago for comments, and I didn't receive anything back, so I think it was acceptable.
Okay. Do we have any comments on that? I know it already went around. Okay, rather than doing these one at a time, why don't we can vote on them all at once, I think. You want to go to the next one?
Yeah, well, the next one I've got is basically the Nest cameras. That's really a proposal. You know, I'm waiting to come back on new business for that one. Old business, rather. New business.
Okay.
And I think Steve's got the contractor policy to discuss with us.
So you need to discuss the policy procedure for unpaid assessments, the second policy. There were two policies.
No.
Yeah.
You want to address that?
Ron,
Yeah.
we've got two policies that were presented to you guys for review. And so the first one you just went over about the notice of hearing, that one, and then there was another one that I sent for some amendments of unpaid assessments. We just took 3 or 4 paragraphs out that were not really enforceable. So
Okay.
you saw those?
I believe I did. I didn't send anything back to you on them.
No.
Okay, let me do that.
Okay, so we're good to go on that as well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because they were both reviewed by the attorney, and so.
Right. Yeah. Sounds good. Sorry for the delay.
Scott's right. You can make a motion to adopt both policies at the same time.
Okay. We need to address contractor too, though, right?
Yeah, that'll be separate. That's a rule and regulation.
That's a rule, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have a motion to adopt policies then? Rick makes a motion.
I'll second.
Rick seconds. Discussion. Online. Question.
Not about that.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Move to a vote. All in favor? of Changing.
Aye.
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 Anyway,
7-0.
I think we heard Eric. I didn't hear Ron.
Yes. Aye.
Okay, Boyd.
Aye. Yep.
Okay, that would be 7.
That's 7.
All right. Contractor.
Yeah, so contractor, Scott sent an email out to the whole board regarding the contractor rules. We had a homeowner put some input in. The proposed amended rule would read all contractors are charged to tackle maintenance before starting a project to receive a key card to gain entrance to a unit unless the owner of the condo has the card key service turned off. If the card key service is turned off, the owner has provided the contractor with a key. The contractor will report to tackle maintenance and let them know a job is commencing. Card keys will be issued for a week at a time unless owner or contractor keeps the key for the remainder of the job. So that's the new amendment. Let's just deal with that one section right
Yeah,
now.
let's just have a quick discussion around that. So just in case the folks on the phone couldn't hear, because we are somewhat appropriately social distancing here. We had an owner who suggested something that for those of you who may not be aware, we do have a lot of owners that don't use the Onity keys. The Onity key service card keys are turned off. They just have a separate lock or a deadbolt, whatever the case may be. And the request was, hey, if we've got that situation, can we just issue a key to our contractor so that they're not checking in, not checking in, so that they're not having to come get a new key every week. So that was a suggestion. I'm going to just open this up to the board. You guys, any discussions around that? Any concerns around it? Where we have card keys, it'd still be issued by the week for anybody who has card keys, but for those owners that don't participate in rental, don't have a card key, that have a regular mechanical key and can give that to the contractor directly, do we have any issue with that process and allowing that contractor to access it as they need to?
The only question I had when we had this discussion previous to this morning was, they said they had reached the unit. I heard, and this may not have been them.
It just says card key is turned off, is what it
Yeah.
says.
And was that, so is this unit in Gamelow, Pinecone? Where is it? Pinecone.
Pinecone.
Okay, so all Pinecone units have deadbolts, and all of those deadbolts were installed by the HOA. So we should have a master. That should be a mastered lock, right?
Yeah, it
Is
should be.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't think, and Dave, you might be able to tell me.
We've run
Gary.
into issues where owners have changed that lock or wanted to change that lock, and then we didn't have a master key in case of an emergency to get in. So that's the only question I would make sure that wasn't the case with this one. And also the question becomes, if they hand over a hard key, then what's to stop them from getting in there on weekends
They'd still
and
have to,
outside of hours?
yeah, I mean, they'd still have to adhere to the policy as it exists.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the owner would be responsible for making sure they understood those policies. And as it relates to the master key, I mean, our policy has always been we have to have access to every unit. We have to have a master key. Nobody's supposed to change it. So I'm presuming here that hasn't happened in this case.
Mhm.
They've just turned off the card key and they've got a separate, mechanical key that they're using, or mechanical lock that they're using. So that was issue number one. Any other concerns on that? Anybody on the phone, board, have any?
Scott, I guess the question is, if the owner is going to provide a key to someone, why can't they provide a key to the front desk and the process works exactly like the Onyx does?
I don't know that, well, this is me speaking. I don't know that we want to be responsible for those keys, personally.
But we are now. And we have now keys every week.
We already have everybody else's.
Right? Or do you have a key to everything? You have a key to everything regardless.
Everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
But it wouldn't be the front desk taking the key, it would be maintenance. This front desk doesn't hand out contractor keys.
They would have to go in the maintenance department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have keys to, theoretically, we have keys to all the deadbolts in lock boxes in the maintenance office. Now, all of the deadbolts are supposed to be on our master, and I think all of them are. We've had one owner in particular who rekeyed it off of our master, but that's been changed back. But we always give contractor card keys and hard keys. The hard keys, they're required to turn in every day. They can't keep the hard key. Once those things go out and they don't come back every day, you can't track them.
Okay. Well,
Now,
personally, I'm of the opinion, and this is me talking, I'm of the opinion that if I give my key to somebody and give them access to my unit, that's my business. And if that's a contractor, then that's a contractor. Now, I say that with the caveat that our contractor rules as it relates to access, time of accessing the unit, weekend access, all of that still applies. But if I'm an owner and I hand a key to a contractor, I could be handing that key to somebody downtown just as easily, and we wouldn't know the difference one way or the other. So I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I think it simplifies things for the contractor access.
So I still think that the contractor should, maybe rather than report to tackle maintenance, contact, email, telephone, or email, have it in writing. Send an email to Gary saying, we're going to be in this unit.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that doesn't change any of the notifications or anything else they have to do. We need to know that work's going on.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I would be for eliminating all the contact that we can, just taking work off the maintenance department.
Dave, any concerns from your vantage point on that?
Well, it sounds like we're taking work off of this, but we still have to police it.
No, I know you.
And if we don't control it with the keys, we're having to go out and see who's where. The system we have, I think, works okay. I mean, I mean, if they don't turn in the key every night, that's not the end of the world, but they should turn it in on Friday, and get it in on Monday, so we know who's working where. But I personally like that process.
I have to agree.
Well, I think it's probably easier on the owner to have it, if they've given the front desk a key regardless, it's probably easier on the owner, especially a remote owner, just to have it handled that way regardless.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we have a dog in the hunt if they give a contractor a key directly either. I don't know that we have any control over that. So let's get through the rest of the.
Okay, so then moving on down to the next section. No work will be performed outside the allowed times of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Saturday. No work is allowed on Sundays or holidays. The maintenance department has the authority to adjust these hours if necessary. The last sentence, this particular owner wanted to remove. So the only thing she's really changed is adding the 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Saturday opportunity for non-lodge units to do construction. So no, it still wouldn't be any construction in the lodge.
Right. I don't think she indicates that, but I think that's the tact we're taking.
Yeah, that's the tact that we're taking.
We don't want the noise in the lodge. Okay, so 8 a.m. As opposed to it was 9, correct?
Yeah.
And the other change is opening up Saturday, basically. And then Sundays and holidays are on. Gary has already expressed a concern about Saturdays, so I'll just share that with everyone, that Gary has indicated that he has received complaints from renters about Saturday construction, and for owners that that are here just trying to enjoy a quiet weekend and have to be in a neighboring unit. So that was a concern that he had by opening up Saturdays. I'll open it up for discussion here. Anybody on the phone? Any of the board members have anything to add or any concerns?
I guess I would add this, Eric, is that I'm leery of doing this. But if we do decide to support it, I would say it would be with the provision that if there is a complaint on a Saturday, that the contractor will immediately cease and desist and come back on Monday.
That's going to be difficult because there's such a huge level of sensitivity that some people are going to be offended by a small amount of noise. Some people are going to be offended by a jackhammer. What we'd also talked about was the fact that as a compromise, we might just allow any unit, whether it be lodge and or cluster, to be able to do non-noisy with no power tools or hammering. So if you wanted to paint, if you wanted to move construction material in and out on a Saturday, that would be appropriate in any unit, as long as there was no noise or disturbance to the neighbors.
So I do have a question. It's Kathy.
Yeah.
So with regard to now, if the contractor is doing the work, is the homeowner necessarily there, or the condo owner there, or no?
No.
Probably more
No.
often they're not there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, I can understand. I appreciate the comments as well. I mean, obviously, if people are there trying to relax, you don't want to hear a jackhammer and that type of thing. But the other thing that I would add is that when we do have those contractors there, and I have experienced this as well, is they park their trailers in the areas where people would typically be parking, which makes it a little bit more difficult, especially the busier we get. So I don't know if we have something that we could look at with that with regard to where their trailers are parked. Sometimes they even block the sidewalks. So to try to unload groceries, or people unload, suitcases and whatever other things they have, then it gets to be a little bit more challenging. I mean, I understand the work needs to be done. I just think we need to think through it thoughtfully so that we're looking at all the other people that are there.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, on parking issue anyway.
Yeah.
On the it's parking, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to talk yet.
I do it all the time, Gary. I'm not a board member.
Put your mask on.
On the weekends, parking is going to be a problem. And Dave's not here on weekends. I'm not here on weekends. You've got a staff that is reduced, and now they're going to be going around and policing this. They got other things to do. And contractors, as much as you tell them, and it's in the contractor policy, don't be parking in front of walkways, they do it. And then you get phone calls about it. And I think a lot of it just winds up being a slippery slope where now you're going to wind up allowing other things that it's just going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem with policing. It really is.
This is Ron. I would recommend that we hold off on the Saturday issues. And then for parking issues, we do have a parking section in our rules and regulations that deals with contractors and parking in general, as well as specific parking issues. So we probably need to refer that note to that as well. But we got the tools. We just need to decide which way we want to use them, I guess. But I agree with some of Gary's comments. I think he brings up some good points.
So just out of curiosity, the compromise, if we had a contractor requirement that they had to check in and confirm what work they were doing and get permission to work on a Saturday, where we could reinforce those instructions, would that?
A lot of times there's nobody in the office.
No, I'm not saying they do it on that Saturday. I'm saying they have to get advance permission. If
I'm against it. We're short-staffed on weekends, and if there's an issue, and some of the things we're talking about, like noiseless, where they can paint, but if they're painting with oil-based, we've had more problems with that, where we have every door in the lodge. And
okay.
So it's
fair enough.
Yeah, it's just struggle with it during the week. I think it's going to be extremely difficult trying to manage it on weekends.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Scott, this is Eric. Maybe just one other vector, one other direction, and I see Alan Woods has put in a comment as well. What if by request, we offered to let a contractor extend 1 hour each weekday, so they would get another 5 hours of work without troubling a Saturday?
Well, in essence, we're already suggesting that because we're opening it up from 8 to 5. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
There's one other strikeout that we didn't mention in here, and it was related to work over the holidays. And the owner that sent this asked that we strike language that says that the restriction be well, let me rephrase it. Our policy says that no work is allowed to be done Christmas Eve through New Year's Day. The suggestion was that we strike language that reads, and that restriction may be expanded depending on what days of the week the holidays occur. It's the responsibility of the owner and the contractor to inquire in the maintenance office as to what dates those restrictions apply. I personally think that we stay away from holidays. It's too busy here. For all the reasons already mentioned relative to parking and the nuisance that is caused by work going on, I don't think we change our holiday policy. So maybe to summarize what we've discussed here, it sounds to me like we're okay with the key, but our preference would be that they check in and get the key from the front desk.
From the maintenance.
From the maintenance, I'm sorry, from maintenance. So I think if we can just revise the wording that says that the preference is that they get that from maintenance. Again, we can't control if somebody gives a key to a contractor. So I don't know that we even need to address it here. I think we leave it that they need to get that key from the front desk. Maintenance. Sorry, I've never gone to maintenance and gotten a key. Actually, I did yesterday because somebody locked my damn deadbolt in my unit. I couldn't get in. All right, and then Saturday, I think. Well, I'm sorry. Let's get back to the hours. I think we're okay expanding hours 8 to 5 during the week. It sounds to me like we have a resounding issue with working on Saturdays, so we're going to not allow Saturday work going forward as well. We'll leave it as it was. And the only other strikeout on here was the owner had stricken out a monthly fee after first month of $250. That fee was a typo. That fee is actually $100. I don't believe we should strike that fee. I think there should be a fee in place to encourage a quicker completion of the project. So I think we leave that $100 fee in place. Any concerns or discussions around what I've just summarized?
Sounds good.
Okay. Steve, could you make the decisions?
Yeah.
And we can read them off after we've made them?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll vote on them a little later. Read them off now and tell me.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll do it.
Okay. All right. So we'll vote on that in a minute. A couple of comments. Turn the card work is being done. That's okay. Prior and after, yes, we understand that. But Don, for Don, the thing that Gary and Dave brought up is that does not always happen. So Tammy makes a comment. It says remodel update to update a unit. When you're not changing plumbing, electrical, or floor plan, updating a unit should fall under the contractor or remodel process. That falls under the contractor process. But again, I don't know that there's enough information in that question for me to answer it intelligently. So. Mary made a comment that construction, I think we just handled that. Parking, another parking on no weekend work. Comment about a fee being struck relative to work not being able to be done during COVID. Are we charging fees during COVID if we've told people they can't have contractors in? No. We shouldn't. No. So thank you for pointing that out. I don't think we are, Don. Same question. Who's ever not on mute and perhaps driving or loud? Ron, you might need to hit mute on and off.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, that's cool. Okay. I think we covered all the comments. So we're going to redraft that policy real quick. We'll vote on it once it's redrafted. We can read it in full. Water and sewer. Jerry?
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everybody. Gary, can you put up the slides that I sent you?
Yeah. Let me just find it. Hang on a second. Come on. Got it?
Yep, great. Okay, thanks. So let's go ahead to the next slide. I just wanted to remind everybody who the Water and Sewer Committee members are. They include Joe Carey, Greg Collins on the board, Scott Gillen on the board, me, and Eric Tibbetts on the board. We also have Ken Golden, our Taco legal counsel, is an adjunct, and Steve Harris, who is our water engineer consultant down in Durango. In addition to serving on the committee, I was appointed by Elbert Creek Water Company to serve on their advisory board, one of 5 customer representatives on that board upon recommendation of Taco. So let's move on, Gary. Okay, here's a quickie update summary. The advisory board was created to provide owner input into the rate setting that Elbert Creek was doing for our water and sewer rates, and provide feedback and some oversight of the work. Since that advisory board was created at the end of last year, we've had 3 meetings, and I'll touch briefly on what happened at those meetings in the next slide. But for now, the next bullet is that there are new rates that have been rolled out they call them 2020 rates, and they will go into effect on the 1st of May. And the bottom line from that is that while we saw quite a bit of relief in the rates last year, that after revision for 2020, our rates will go back up. Exactly how much? We don't know exactly, but we'll have more to say about that later. And then the last significant item is that our committee and others have been working diligently for 7 years or more now to get a new contract in place with, it was Glacier at the time, and now Elbert Creek Water Company, for a new agreement governing our water and sewer rates. And in spite of our efforts, not much has happened. There's been a lot of foot dragging going on by Glacier and then ECWC. But we have done some things that may have prompted them to be a little bit more receptive to actually negotiating with us on a new contract. And we'll have more to say about that in just a bit. Okay, Gary, next slide, please. Okay. The initial ECWC Advisory Board meeting was held on February 5th. And at that meeting, we reviewed an early draft of the 2020 proposed rates with the company that ECWC has hired to prepare those rate analyses and studies. That company is called BBC. They're based in Denver, Colorado. So we had a representative from their company go over those rates with us. Several of us on the advisory board had major problems with that review of new rates and asked for revisions. So ECWC and BBC went back and revised those rates. And then they announced on March 23rd, based on their internal reviews and revisions, what the final rates were going to be. We did not have an opportunity to comment further or to suggest any other revisions at that point. And then the last meeting was on the 28th of April, and the purpose of that meeting was to review ECWC's plans for wastewater treatment plant work that is going to begin this year, that's being done under the auspices of a private company called Plummer. That work is expected to cost somewhere on the order of $1.5 million in 2020, and it may be more than that in the ensuing years. Okay, next slide, Gary. Okay, I want to say a couple of words about these new rates that were rolled out effective May 1st. They increased significantly from what they were in 2019. And it was due primarily to the fact that ECWC collected far less money from customers with their 2019 rates than what they had expected to receive. That was due to a large extent because they have meters on their production facilities for domestic water, and then they installed meters on almost all of the properties in the community. The production meters said that on average, the plant was producing 44 million gallons of water, domestic water, and that's what it would be for 2019, and made the rates based on the assumption that all of that 44 million gallons would be used by users and it would show up on the meters and they would be charged appropriately and everything should be fine. The problem was that when the meters were actually read, it turned out that they only registered 22 million gallons, or about 50% of what was produced was actually showing up as being used by the residents and irrigation in the community. So the obvious question is, where did the water go? Now, we've had an inkling for some years that they have had losses in their lines, and we asked them, in fact, to try to track down those losses. They said that they had hired somebody to do that a number of years ago, and nothing significant showed up. However, the fact that they are losing 50% of their water somewhere, and it's unaccounted for, is completely unacceptable. And not only I, but almost unanimously among the advisory board members, we've insisted that ECWC pin down exactly where those losses are and get them fixed. Because, among other things, it costs them a certain amount of money to produce each gallon of domestic water. And so some of what we pay is based on how much they produce rather than how much we actually use. And that means that a good portion of our bill could be essentially twice of what it normally would be with these losses in the line. So we're trying to get that resolved. Another thing is that ECW unilaterally imposed a debt service on $2.7 million worth of capital work that was done prior to 2017. That work we challenge, and the fact that they want us to pay, or anybody should have to pay for that. And there are numerous reasons for that, and I won't go into them unless somebody wants to maybe contact me offline. I can address that. The other issue with our new rates for 2020 compared to last year is that the irrigation water rates increased significantly. And the reason for that is that they decided to impose the same tiered rate structure on the irrigation lines as they do for each of the houses and buildings at Taco. And what that means is that while most of the residential buildings are billed at the lowest rate of the tier, the irrigation lines, we only have, 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them. They use much more water so that we blast right through to the top tier rate, and that increases our rate significantly. So next slide, Gary. I think I have a little bit more to say about that. Okay, no. All right, so this is from a slide from the ECWC 2020 water and sewer rates. This is actually posted on their website, and I put a link to it at the bottom. So if you look at Elbert Creek Water Company, you can go there and you can actually see what the rates are. And so this slide is taken from that report that was posted. It was done by BBC for ECWC. And what this shows is what the expected average monthly bills will be for 2020 compared to 2019 for the different user classes that ECWC has established. Those user classes include single-family dwellings, multifamily buildings, business accounts or commercial accounts, and irrigation accounts and raw water accounts. The raw water account is specifically for golf course watering and does not concern us directly. So several people, especially the single-family owners throughout the community, looked at these rate increases that you see there on the top line. 2019, their average monthly bill was $132, and it's going up for 2020 based on the new rates to $244, or an increase of $112 over the last year's rates. Multifamily, on the other hand, paid were the average family home, multifamily home was going to be paying $64 a month in 2019, and it only went up to $73, which was a much lower increase. All of the single family home owners, when they saw this, had major problems with it. So at the last advisory board meeting that we had, I pointed out to them that this is not an accurate reflection of what everybody is paying. And the main reason for that is that all of the business water usage and all of the irrigation water usage is actually being paid by the owners in the community, whether they are single family owners or multifamily owners such as Taco. And so I volunteered to recalculate those average numbers based on including the commercial water usage and the irrigation water usage. And I provided that feedback on that to the rest of the advisory board and to ECWC. And also the BBC consultant that ECWC is using had also volunteered to do the same type of calculation, who has access to much more better data than I do. But we have not seen that from him. But Gary, if you move on to the next slide, I will show what happens when you fold in what everybody is actually paying for irrigation and commercial. And those lines now are the ones in cyan on the chart. And what you see is that when you fold in what the single family owners are paying toward irrigation and commercial, and what their use is, with their portion of the use, it's small. And what they're effectively paying is only slightly greater than what was shown initially. And for multifamily homes, on the other hand, when you look at what the amount of irrigation water and commercial water is, it reflects an increase in usage by the multifamily owners who are primarily Taco. And when you fold in the irrigation and commercial, you see that what we at Taco are paying on average per month is significantly more than what it is if you don't include those things. So in fact, what I thought would be a better way to contrast that is to show what the effective rates people are paying per gallon of domestic water delivered to them. And what you can see is that for the single family owners, that bring it up where I can see it a little bit better. What they're paying per gallon of usage is basically just under $35 a gallon, whereas what all multifamily owners, including Taco primarily, are paying per gallon is almost $7 per gallon. So it's significantly more. So even though we use less than a third of what the per owner, what the single family owners use. So one of the things that ECWC wanted to do with their rate structure was to encourage conservation. Well, the multifamily users like Taco owners are practicing conservation and using significantly less water than the single family owners at Glacier and Rockwood and the estates around us. But instead of receiving a discount for our conservation, we're actually being billed more than what they are. So I pointed this out to them so that the single family owners would understand and appreciate that they're still getting a pretty good deal compared to Taco.
Hey, Jared, just to clarify, you had indicated 34.57 per gallon and 46.87. What you meant to say was per 1,000 gallons, correct?
That is per 1,000 gallons. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, absolutely correct. That's the rate per 1,000 gallons of usage. Okay. All right. So Gary, let's move on to the next slide. Okay. A little bit more on the irrigation because there's a little bit of history. Once upon a time, we used treated effluent, basically raw water, to irrigate at Taco. There was a Colorado statute that said that we had to switch to domestic water because children, pets, etc., could drink that irrigation water, and therefore it had to be safe water. And so we switched to that. When that switch occurred, and Joe reminded me, was that like 2015 or so, we began being billed for that irrigation water in addition.
Yeah.
Dave?
2016, I think, Gary.
2016. Okay, thanks. So in 2019, last year, when the new rates from ECWC went into effect, the irrigation water was charged at a relatively low rate. However, for 2020, they made the rate, as I said before, the same as for regular domestic water home usage. And because so much more water flows through those meters compared to for individual buildings, residential buildings, all of that water now is going to be billed basically at the highest tier rate, which is very disadvantageous to the people who use irrigation water, which means primarily Taco. Taco uses something like in excess of 80% of all of the irrigation water that is delivered to customers by ECWC. So when Joe calculated how much our irrigation costs would go up from 2019 to 2020, it went up astronomically from something like 32,000 to well over 100,000 for 2020. And so based on that, I asked Joe asked Dave Dunn to look into why our irrigation water usage at Pinecone and Gamble Oak was so much higher than High Point. And Dave did that. Dave, do you want to say what you actually did and what you found?
Yeah, basically we just got a 32-gallon barrel and read the meter, filled the barrel and checked it. We did it 2 or 3 times. And we found it was quite a bit more than that, but then there's a multiplier and some stuff that Sean provided us. So when we did use their multipliers and did that sort of thing, we found we were about 2.5 times what it should have been. The meters ended up reading about 70 gallons for a 32-gallon container.
Yeah. Clearly there was a problem with the metering on their Gamble Oak and Pinecone irrigation lines. So ECWC and in particular their plant manager Sean Young has agreed to replace the meters. Dave, do you have any updates on what the status of that is?
Currently, the Pinecone meter was replaced. The Gamble Oak meter was removed. And right now, my understanding is we're not being charged for the Gamble Oak water until they get the new meter replaced.
Very good. Thanks, Dave. On behalf of everybody, all the owners, I thank you for looking into that and finding the issue with it. Okay, let's move on to this issue of debt service. We have a long-standing agreement in place with the predecessor of ECWC and Glacier Club, which was still in effect continuously. By that agreement, even with an amendment that was put in place in 2003, which that it said that basically, since we were paying a flat bulk rate with 3% increase per year, that we were not responsible for any maintenance, additional maintenance, replacement, capital expenses to improve or upgrade any of the facilities for the water treatment. So what Glacier and ECWC rather is doing now is spending a lot of money on improvements, which actually are needed, but they are charging all of the customers at an interest rate of 4%. So that is actually a significant amount now of what we are paying for our water bills. By that previous agreement, TACO was explicitly exempted from paying for any of those capital improvements. And so I haven't seen, I don't know if Lisa has received or Joe has seen yet the first bill. Actually, we won't get that until June now. So sometime in June. So we haven't seen the first bill for May. But it will have included in that bill debt service on $2.7 million worth of capital work that was done prior to 2017 when we were clearly exempt from it, and we are still currently exempt because of our legal agreement. So it is our position that TACO will not pay those debt service costs on those capital improvements until a new agreement is negotiated or we come to some other agreement with ECWC about payment, TACO's payment for those costs. We believe that by refusing to pay those debt service costs, it's going to get them to pay attention to our request for serious negotiations on a new agreement with them. And there has been some movement within the last week. It's so recent that I did not have time, nor did the committee have time to investigate further, unless Scott or anybody has an update from any further discussions with anybody over at ECWC or Glacier.
No discussions have been had. It's our previous call.
Okay. All right. So that's basically the update. I was going to ask Joe to say a little bit more about what the expected impact of our rates with the new rates going into effect this month will be compared to what they were last year. Joe?
Sure. So if we were to be billed at the same rates that we're under now, well, we're actually under the new rates now because we're in May. Up until April 30th of this year, our total annual water bill would be about $306,000. We budgeted $336,000 under the expectation, based on a comment by Jim Goodman in a meeting we had last year, that we could expect an incremental increase in the rates. So we budgeted about $330,000, up on that by about 5%. If we were to pay the full amount of the 2020 proposed rates starting this month, billed, as you said, it'll be billed next month, our total annual bill would jump by just about $100,000 to $407,000. Then we decided, and as Jerry said, we've looked at the debt service component, which is principal and interest on that debt. Interest, by the way, at what, 4%, I think, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Above the market rate, I might comment. Would the debt service portion of that 406,000 comes up to just under $120,000 over the course of a full year. So quite a significant amount, more than 25% of the total bill.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I see that there are a couple of questions from Dan, which I can address. Dan asks, has any outside entity served by ECWC signed a new water contract? That is Rockwood Estates, the village at Rockwood, or any of the other estates that are served. The answer is yes. There have been some groups and individual owners who have signed contracts. I don't have a detailed list of who has signed and who has not, but I know that there are some who have not. Taco has not in particular. And is Taco going to consider zero landscaping everywhere? I'll pass that on to the board and to Dave perhaps to address.
So the question is Taco going to consider, it says zero landscaping, zero scapes for everywhere? I guess relative, the question is relative to our heavy usage of irrigation.
We haven't discussed. Yeah. No. Couldn't rule it out, but it hasn't been discussed yet.
Yeah, it certainly reducing or changing the types of vegetation that we have in our landscaping to even further lowered water use types of plants could potentially save us, especially now with these very, very high irrigation rates. And by the way, I did complain to ECWC about what they have done by imposing the same domestic residential tiered structure on the irrigation water. That just does not seem appropriate or fair to me. And I've registered my complaint with them. But as I said, they took what they published on March 23rd and they said, this is the way it will be, period. End of story.
Jerry, this is Eric. Just to make sure I understand, the March 23rd publication did not reflect a 4% interest rate. So those numbers that you shared earlier will be declining at least slightly because of the 4% rate rather than the 6% rate. Is that correct?
I don't think so, Eric. I'll double check, but I believe that reduction from 6% interest to 4% interest on the debt service was reflected in the rates published on March 23rd and which are at the ECWC website now.
Jerry, did you have anything else to add, or we just
no? Okay. You know, certainly anybody else on the committee please, please chime in if you want.
I think that's-
I don't know if you want to say anything further about what our plans are, or should we hold off on that?
Yeah.
And there are further developments.
Yeah. So I'll summarize. We've spoken to Ken Golden. We're going to have further discussion in executive session today. It is still our position, just holistically speaking, it is still our position that ECWC, previously known as Glacier, previously known as Cameron Water District, whatever it was, still has an obligation to us under a contract that dates back to 1989. That has been extended multiple times. We've been operating basically without a contract since 2013, and it's our position to them that they have an obligation to negotiate good faith rate terms specifically with TACO relative to the water. What they're basically doing is unilaterally applying a rate structure without negotiation and just telling us that that's what they're going to do. So at this juncture, we have a lot of different legal options. Anything from mediation to arbitration. There's a lot of options on the table that are being discussed. We are still taking the stance that we want to negotiate with them, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in executive session. I'm sure everybody that has been on these calls or been in meetings in the past is sick of hearing about water. I will tell you that everybody here on the board is sick of talking about water. We'd like to have it done. This is kind of our last piece that we're trying to deal with Glacier. So we're motivated to get it done. Unfortunately, we still seem to be at a degree of impasse with them. And we're just looking at what options are available to us. And we may very well take options that include mediation or arbitration to get this thing, satisfied. So that's the only thing I have to add. If anybody else wants to add anything. No? Okay. All right. Why don't we try to get rental program knocked out?
I wasn't necessarily going to read this full report, but just kind of summarize it.
Okay.
Obviously we were shut down for 2 months. That resulted in a lot of, canceled reservations throughout that 2-month period, and really through, reservations were canceling for all of 2020. So there's a big impact, obviously, to all the homeowners that participate in rental, and obviously the management companies. While some summer reservations are coming in, they're slow. They're a lot slower than normal, which is probably not surprising to anybody. I think a lot of folks are advertising off-season rates for the beginning of summer just to try to get some momentum going. But what you're dealing with is everybody's looking to fill their calendars right now. Everybody's calendars are basically, empty. So the competition to fill the calendars for the smaller group of travelers that are traveling, is kind of driving these smaller nightly rates. Some of the positives for Cameron in particular is, definitely people are not flying, but our normal feeder markets are drivable. People normally are driving here or more often than flying. So, that is a positive for this area if you're just looking at it from a rental perspective. People are also looking at vacation rentals as a safer alternative than hotels. And that's been kind of the market trend if you follow any of the, I read some of the vacation rental publications that come out. Travelers consider them, to have less interaction with people. They think they're going to be cleaner. So some of those things. Now the rental homes are trending better than condos, and it's because of the seclusion of the home versus, you know, the condos. Another thing that we're seeing throughout the country is these longer term stays. So they're still vacationing, but they're wanting to vacation for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, instead of 2, 3, 4 nights. So a little bit later, I'm gonna bring up a proposal on looking at how we're doing some fees for that. I know that in my units, we're following the CDC guidelines for disinfecting, and it's lengthy. It's adding a lot of time to the cleans. So we just got done going around to every condo that I manage and did a pre-disinfect. And obviously they need a touch-up clean. They've been sitting empty for a couple months. So we just got them all rental ready and prioritized based on, you know, who was coming in first. And then we've got to do that same process after every clean. So we've actually increased the clean fee. We put a line item for the COVID disinfecting clean fee, so guests at least see that, okay, well, they are disinfecting. You know, that puts some comfort level there. I'm sure I would hope that all the individual owners and other managers are following the CDC guidelines on disinfecting. We talked about this earlier. Obviously, the pool and fitness center is not open. I have not experienced any negative response from guests about that. People are kind of expecting that things are closed. So while it might be disappointing for a few people, I think as long as people are communicating with their guests that, you know, what's open and what's not. So it's not a surprise when they get here. People aren't, you know, mad at the staff. Just making sure that owners and managers are communicating those closures with guests before they get here. And for example, I'm emailing my arrivals for the upcoming week. Okay, here's what's going on this week. And we just don't know when the pool and fitness center are going to open yet. The next order, I believe, comes out on June 1st. And we still don't know on that June 1st day what that means for the pool and fitness center. So just really, it's a week by week thing. And really, there's not a whole lot open right now. We just opened restaurants on Wednesday. I think they can be 50% capacity in town. I know the Mine Shack won't open till June 2nd to their limited, you know, dine-in seating. Purgatory is advertising their summer activities will begin June 20th. I'm guessing they just picked a far enough out date, assuming that they can open by then. But I don't think the rafting companies have approval yet. You know, there's just, the train's not running. There's not a lot happening unless you want to get out and hike and bike, which a lot of people do here, obviously. So anyway, it's hard to tell what the summer is going to be like. I think June is going to be a flop. We had a nice big wedding group in June, but obviously you can't have a gathering over 10 people right now. So you can't have a wedding reception. So those folks pushed off to August. But we don't even know once August hits if that group will be able to congregate. It's 150 people in that wedding. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think the front desk staff has been doing a great job, you know, trying to figure out how to deal with it. It's not fun for everybody to have to wear masks all the time, but everybody working here knows it's necessary. And they're, you know, have embraced that. I think we worked over the last couple of weeks, you know, Steve, kind of getting the lobby a little more guest friendly. You know, we started out with signs everywhere and we had tables blocking things and, you know, everything we could think of to do to try to keep some distance between staff and people walking through the lobby. And while that worked, it didn't look all that great, but now I think it looks really nice with the ropes. So that's kind of the general report. But kind of circling back to this trend of longer stays, you know, right now we have two fee structures and two kinds of rentals. We have short-term rentals and long-term rentals. We define short-term as less than 30 nights, long-term is 30 nights or longer. So our short-term rentals pay $30 a night. And this is all assuming that the rental has a Glacier membership associated with it. It's $30 a night. And then there's a $30 a month fee for those owners that participate in the short-term rental program. And then long-term, there is no, the long-term renter falls under the owner's membership to Glacier. So I think the membership is $85 a month right now or something for social. So there is no nightly fee. 95? Yeah. There is no nightly fee, resort fee for a long-term renter. They just fall under that owner's membership and can use the facility that way. And then those owners are charged $45 a month. So right now you're either on vacation or you're moving in. That's kind of how we've dealt with it. And short-term rentals pay the nightly fee. Long-term rentals are signing leases with owners. They're doing background checks. They're signing under rules and regs. You know, it's more paperwork driven. I think we need to look at a blend of this somehow for what I'm calling a midterm vacation. So, you know, these kind of folks that are maybe staying for 6 weeks. Well, maybe Tahoe needs to, like, as it would stand right now, a 6-week rental who is truly a vacationer. They're not moving to Durango. They're coming on a long vacation. Right now, Tahoe makes no nightly money on that person. Glacier Club makes no resort fee on that person. We're running background checks. They're signing leases. You know, they're doing all that paperwork. But they really are vacationers. So I think we need to look at some kind of a blend of, you know, $30 a night is a little steep. But is there a lower blend that we can come up with to account for these, what I think is going to be a long-term trend that we're going to be seeing, to capture a little bit of that money, maybe lighten the paperwork a little bit. I still think they need to set the rules and regs. Maybe we can lighten up on the background check. I think we can come up with a blend to deal with this different kind of vacationer. So I have some thoughts on that. I think we would need to address that at Glacier.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, this is Tina Rubin. We own 2 units. I would agree with what I believe it's Heather is saying. We currently have someone that's coming in. They both are able to work from home right now, but they want to be able to be in a more friendly environment. But we're having to charge them $900. They're staying 30 nights. So of the rate of $75 that we're charging a night, 30 of that is having to go, which comes to $90 or $900 is going to the facility. So I would support trying to do something where maybe we could set them up as more of a long-term, maybe lower those rates. So we could look at it being something a little bit more reasonable, because we're having to lower our rates to entice people to come back to the resort.
Okay, thank you. Just if everybody could hold off on chiming in, let's have the discussion here first, because we may cover a lot of these things before we have everybody chiming in. And but thank you Tina for sharing that. I think, you know, I do agree with the trend. I do think it's not only a trend. I think COVID is making it a trend also. I personally, folks that have been told to work from home and they're like, well, I'm sick and tired of my damn house. I'm going to go here. I will also share with you that I have some beach houses that I rent down east of Galveston, and we've had the best May that we've had in 20 years. And it's because people just want to get out and they want to get to they want a house. So we're starting to see more of that type of rental activity. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but the DoubleTree is shut down. It's closed downtown. The DoubleTree's 200 rooms probably. So there's going to be probably reduced hotel room availability, at least for a period of time, which means we, theoretically should look more attractive. I guess the first thing that jumps to mind that we need to just research is, and for everybody on the phone that may not be aware of this, we do have a commitment under our contract with Glacier, and it is tied to how we define short and long-term renters. So Glacier does collect funds from us, and we need to look at it. It's not like we're collecting these funds, as a taco slush fund. Most of that money gets passed along. The $35 or $30 a month, whatever it is that we have out there, is something that helps pay for the front desk. But the rest of this really is in line with what we have to pass through to Glacier. So I don't know that we could, Tina, I don't know that we could solve for your issue quickly, because there might be some communication that needs to happen or some adjustments that need to happen, and we need to look at the contract that we have with Glacier before we can make a decision. But certainly, we've had people inquire in the past about 30, 40, 90-day rentals, that kind of thing, and we've always tried to figure out ways to make it work. But it is a disadvantage for those of us that are in the rental program and obviously have to pass through those funds. So, and it makes the property basically completely unattractive at those rates. So, any other comments from the board initially anyway, before we see if we have any comments on the phone?
I mean, I guess my comment is I think that both Glacier and Taco are actually leaving money on the table by not coming up with this midterm idea, because the alternative is, fine, they're a long-term rental, and we'll just do the background check and the lease and the whatever, and then nobody's getting anything by the night.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth looking at this midterm thing, because I think the background check is offensive to people who
Yes, totally agree.
they're booking on VRBO or Airbnb, and they've already made their reservation and paid for it. Now I got to call them and say, okay, now I need your social security number and your date of birth and your whatever, because I'm going to run a background check. And a long-term tenant who's moving here gets that. That's normal for a true long-term renter. But a vacationer coming for 6 weeks, they're like, who are you? I'm not giving you my social security number. So it's really trying to solve for that in a way that also brings some money to the table that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
But not $900.
No, I agree. I mean, the background check was put in place for a very specific reason, and it certainly wasn't for vacationers.
It was to keep us from getting saddled with
It was to keep Ashley's out.
Well, originally it was sex offenders, because we had a couple on property, and we didn't want sex offenders on property, and we said, 6 weeks, even if they are a sex offender, they're going to be gone in 6 weeks. But,
And that's the difference. Is not people signing 12-month leases, moving their kids to the school district. I mean, it's just, and really what it is it's typically it's the retired folks who, want to get out of the heat of Phoenix for the summer, or the people like Tina described where, they work from home anyway. And why not, if you're trapped at home, why not take a vacation and work from home, from that home?
Yeah.
So, I've got one of Boyd's friends coming for 2 months this summer. And it just seems like, seems like we should be able to come up with something different. Boyd's Friend isn't moving here.
Glacier's amenable to whoever the long-term renter is being the designated member. And that's only getting them $84 a month. That's the membership fee. So, I mean, they've got to, you would think they've got to be willing to compromise on that a little bit and maybe for a short term, because of paperwork and everything, do it for $100 a month or something. Who knows,
And there's no advantage for the true long-term renters to cheat the system because there's going to be more fees involved in this scenario, this midterm vacationer thing. So, I don't see any cheating of the system that could really happen from this.
I think we should talk to Glacier and.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should do it sooner than later. I mean, we've got summer months on top of us already, and I think we need to look at it closely and try to get you an answer pretty quickly.
You might want to start that instead of going right to the top with Jim Goodman. You might want to start that process with somebody like Ken Stone, and I mean he's membership, and he might more readily see the advantage of doing something like that.
Okay.
Who we originally dealt with on all that, Sandy.
Well, Sandy Greco too.
Sandy Greco.
Yeah.
And now I have not met Ryan Smith yet.
Well, he's golf.
No, he's also in charge of pool fitness.
Oh,
he's all amenities.
He's director of golf, isn't he? All amenities. Okay. All right.
So, those might be good people to bring in.
He sent us an email.
Okay.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to talk about there? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we need to solve for that. Any other comments out there? We can take a break now, or we can try to get through the rest of these 4 items. How long's property report?
Probably 10 minutes.
What do you guys want to do?
2 hours.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going? Okay. Let's keep going. Go for it.
All right. So first on the list is furnace PMs. We're just wrapping those up. We're pretty much done. We did change over to the opt-in policy this year. I'd say Gary estimated about half the units opted in. It was a much easier, cleaner way to go. We finished it sooner. There's probably going to be some laggers that didn't realize it, but all in all, I think it was a good change. Personnel, we were up to full strength, except for the cleaning position, but we did lose. One of the gentlemen turned in his notice last week, so we're going to be down one. It's John, one of the newer guys, but I probably don't know him. He was a hard worker, hate to lose him, but he's decided to move on. The summer worker who's helping Taryn is only available 3 days a week, so she's a little short-handed. And the one thing we had John doing going into summer was working on our irrigation, because we know that's been a weakness, trying to fill in the people that work in grounds, Taryn or Helper or Mike. So he was currently pretty much dedicated just to irrigation. He was moving some heads, taking some offline where we were overwater and trying to get just better coverage, better use of the water we were using. Backflow preventers, Mark has completed the testing. He was actually supposed to renew his license this year. He was set up to do it March or April. The class was canceled because of the pandemic. He did an online renewal, which got him okay for short term to do the testing, but he will have to do the lab portion of it. He may have to go to Denver to do that. They haven't sorted that out, so he's going to be working on that. The south elevator, as already mentioned, we're still in line for the fall to do that. Tyson Crump was up here last week, another look at it. They said their suppliers, everything seems to be in order, so we don't see a delay on that at this time. Central tower rear deck, I don't know if everybody's looked out there, you'll see some barricades. We ended up having some rust inside out, some post failed. So we had a welder fabricator up here last week or early this week. They looked at it, gave us 2 prices to repair what's there or just replace it. That's the one rail, doesn't match anywhere else. Figuring that 3 posts rotted out from inside, the rest kept me far behind. So Joe and I talked about that yesterday, and we're gonna go ahead and just take that rail off and put a whole new one on to match the others. And that'll probably be done in the next couple of weeks. The exterior staining, we're a little behind on that. Just the way things work this year. We have 2 different contractors doing it. They're both going to be starting the next few weeks. They'll be starting in Pinecone and High Point, and that'll probably continue through all the summer and into the fall, which is pretty typical. That contractor, I just spoke with him. He's actually in Mexico, winter's there, and hasn't come back yet. He will be over the next week or 2. He's going to come. We had some things on the books to do. We're going to review that, see if we still want to do it. But as of right now, the plan is just to continue with the process we've started. We budgeted for it, and we will complete that work. The lodge entry area, Joe touched on. We did the paving work on it, excavated, put in sleeves, electric. And got it repaved as quickly as possible to open up the parking lots. Now we're starting to do access in the buildings and what we're doing in the beds themselves. Obviously, step 1 is to get the irrigation up and running, at least to the bed, figure out the planning, and then we'll finish the irrigation throughout the bed. We haven't really done a lot of planning or looking at that. Until we had water, there was no need to. Obviously, Taryn will be very involved with that, and we'll keep that process moving. Grounds, Taryn's still there, doing a great job. She's starting on the flower beds right now, using Memorial Day as our kind of when we figure that killing frosts are past. So she'll be getting plants and hanging plants out. She's working with the young man who just mentioned 3 days a week. We got off to a bit of a slow start. We are working reduced shifts to match the state requirements. So between the drought and the short schedules where things aren't where we usually like to be right now, but hopefully we'll catch up as we go. The guy that's leaving, we're gonna have to try and get him replaced as soon as possible so we don't lose ground on the irrigation. I know the grass has been struggling. I'm gonna meet with Tara and we're gonna look at possibly getting some help from an outside contractor to see if we can start turning that around. We were hoping the irrigation would be in line enough that we could look at that. Once again, we're a little behind, but we're still going to continue with that process. Stone repair, columns, every year we go through, address stones that are broken, fallen off. Earlier, last couple of weeks, identified those, cut them out, put on new ones. So hopefully he caught all those. If not, somebody let us know if they see one we missed. And last is the roofing. We do have a roofing contractor we work with, relatively new contractor, but the young man that owns it has been a roofer in town for years. He was actually involved in some of the re-roofs in here the last time it was done. So he knows the property real well. It's good to work with. He's the one that actually looked at with our consultant on the re-roof project. But this summer he'll be doing just some repairs on the back of the lodge at High Point where we identified problems over there. So hopefully over the next month or so, they'll be taking care of that. That's it.
Any opportunity with these staffing issues now that you've got probably some folks that are looking for work? Do you have any luck hiring people?
Don't know. We're just starting the process.
We're going to put an Indeed ad out there, and we'll probably get inundated like I've done the last two, 3 times. And so I'm pretty sure that we're going to find some good candidates. Elise and I will do the preliminary, and then Dave and Mark will be involved.
Indeed is more national, isn't it?
It works.
Does it tend to be regional?
It works to get a bazillion hits back. You just have to weed through the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about local advertising? Are you going to do any of that?
No.
No? Okay.
All right, any questions? Property report, anything come up there? See anything?
Just a question on the new elevator, making a grinding noise. I don't use it very much, so I haven't noticed that.
We can have a look at it. I guess Greg, that's on the They talk about the new one that's already installed.
The central tower?
It's not a grinding noise, it's just kind of a ringing up and down. It's done that for a long time. But it's not, not a real.
We'll put it on Greg's list. We have a contract with Tyson Truck. Once a month, their technician comes and basically looks over both of them and basically keeps them going. So we'll have him look at it and see what he finds.
All right, so we got 2 more items before unfinished business. So who's you got a COVID update for us there, Steve?
Gary, you want to leave that up? Or you want me
Or
to?
Gary gonna do it?
I'm sorry?
COVID update, I'll leave that up or you want me to? So you've seen the front entrance, we've got the barrier set up because people we would say all those, we had 9 signs up and people would still walk right up to the counter, walk within 2 feet of the front desk monitor, which made a number of monitors very uncomfortable during the day. So we finally got the rope thing, which is the ideal thing. It really we're going to put a drop box for the keys, so the dropping up the keys will be removed from coming up to the counter. So the only time the person comes to the counter is to pick up their keys and a piece of paper to fill out, and then the front desk monitor could be at least 6 feet away. We've gotten compliance on people wearing masks on the interior of the building to about 80%, but we have some very staunch non-mask wearing folks, one of which lives in 301. His name is Kevin. He finally did put a mask on for a couple of times, but him and a group of 20 to 35-year-olds I've never seen a mask on. So we're going to be approaching these folks and telling them that if they're in the interior of the property, they need to be wearing masks. In the case of Kevin, have we contacted that owner at all yet, Gary?
Yeah, once before.
Yeah, because he was rather aggressive with one of our front desk monitors in the fact that this is bullshit. I need to follow these rules. So we contacted the owner, and with him in particular, we'll be contacting the owner again, saying, there's going to be a hearing, and there's going to be some fines involved here if this continues. We really do need your tenant to be wearing a mask on the inside of the property. We had Sherry was on station one evening when 2 very aggressive bikers came in, not bikers motorcycle bikers, but bikers bicycle, and they stood at the end in front of the elevator and coughed really loudly, like "screw you," and it was really unsettling for Sherry. So with that in mind, Heather and I, and Elise, we had a staff meeting for front desk monitors on Wednesday, and we put together just some uniform approaches to customer service, in that if there's a problem, that they might take the advantage of just picking up the walkie-talkie and saying, "Hey, maintenance, can you come to front desk?" And then if a maintenance person can get there in a short period of time, they're going to show up just to have another person in the lobby with that front desk monitor while you're addressing a person who's not wearing a mask. We have instructed our front desk monitors not to get into a confrontation over masks. If they come in, they check in, we've got a non-mask person checking in, they're going to say, "Hey, we have a mask in the building rule, please abide by it. Do you have anything in your car you can use as a face mask or face covering?" We're going to we then have a room number, and Gary, myself, and Elise and Heather will be emailed guest 240 checked in without a mask, and then we will deal with it, either talking to the property management company and or the owner saying, your tenant, your guest is in violation of our mask rule. Please don't let this happen again. So we told our people, we don't want you to get into a ruckus. You're going to just politely ask that they wear a mask on the inside of the property. And then as we go through the summer and as we get more and more people from various states surrounding, we're going to just see how that goes. It puts the front desk monitor in a pretty difficult situation right off the bat. But we've tried to provide them support. We put the barrier up, plenty of masks for them to wear, plenty of gloves. The disinfectant's been been installed throughout the property.
So are we giving those folks masks, or do we have enough to give those folks masks that come in and?
Not a bunch, but yeah, if somebody, if there's one or two people, yeah, but if a family of 4 comes in, we're gonna be going through masks pretty fast.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's not like we're gonna advertise it, but if it comes down to it, we'll do that.
Well, hopefully this will start to wane here.
Yeah. Gary, you got anything to add?
No, just try to put updates on the website as much as possible, send out emails. I know a lot of people don't read the emails because there's a lot of them. But, just try to keep people informed, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do, and for everybody on the phone also, and anybody that views this later, please just understand that we're doing what we think is best for the ownership and for the tenants and everybody here.
We're complying.
We're complying with Colorado law. We're complying with local law. It's not fair to take it out on anybody. None of us like the masks, but it is what it is, at least for the time being. Question up there that asks if we have video cameras at the front desk. We do have video cameras, but they're not actively monitored,
Yeah,
I
they
don't think. Are they?
Yeah.
So they're constantly monitored, or they're just looked at recordings?
They're recorded.
We've got a TV screen at the front desk that monitors them all the time.
Okay.
And Heather has, you have the link at home?
I don't.
Okay, but you could, and so Dave's got it in his back.
I mean, I don't watch it unless something has happened, and then we can go back.
You can go back.
Yeah, we don't have a security person, it's just, like, just so you know, watching it. It's pulled up there, but I would say it's not monitored.
That was kind of my feeling. Okay.
But we can go back.
And I will say, to any of the property managers listening, please, remind your guests the week before check-in that there is mask wearing policy at Tamron, as is mask wearing policy in all of downtown Durango. So, they need to have a mask, not only for here, but for anywhere else they're really going around here. And I haven't had one person that I've reminded, who's coming, complain about the mask. So everybody just gets it, but it's really helpful if you can remind them shortly before their stay. So if they're booking, if they booked May 1st and they're not coming until July 15th, they might forget in that 2.5, month time period. So if they're coming July 15th, maybe the week of July 7th, you're emailing them. Don't forget about our mask policy, and you can give them some other updates.
Yeah, we need to remember they could be coming from places that the rules are different.
Right.
So, we'll continue to monitor the Governor Polis's issues, San Juan Health District, whatever they put out. It's all we can do, and we'll just have to follow the rules accordingly. I can tell you that, again, just walking around downtown yesterday, I went into 3 stores. Every single one said masks are mandatory. I didn't have when I walked in. I put it on when I walked in the door because I was walking from outside to inside. But everybody has the same requirements. So we shouldn't be viewed as being difficult. We're doing the same thing as everybody else in this town and county.
Okay. There's a question up there.
Brian's? I just addressed that. Okay. Continue to monitor the San Juan Public Health. Are we going to remove it? That remains to be seen. We need to see what comes out. We'll continue to monitor all the regulations as they come out, and we'll loosen it as we feel is appropriate.
June 19th, unless it's extended further.
Is that what it is now, June 19th? All right, anything else?
Nope. We can get onto that rule change amendment.
All right, let's get down to the rule change. And
so you have to understand, when I amend a rule, I like to make it so that information going back and forth between the association and homeowners is in writing. So to that effect, the change to read, all contractors are to email the Taco Maintenance Department to acknowledge receipt of the contractor rules and notify the start date and estimated end date of the project. This is a good idea because it gives Gary and Dave an idea of when it starts, when it ends, and it puts the contractor actually has to sit there and think about it, and then it's in writing, so that when it takes 2 or 3 or 4 months, you go, wait a minute, back in June, this is the estimated start date, so it gives you a good place to start. All contractors will obtain a card key or hard key from the maintenance department on the first day of the project. Hard keys will be issued for a week at a time, and hard keys will be returned daily. Keys will be reissued as needed, and under no circumstance shall a contractor receive a key card from the front desk.
I don't have a problem. Was daily and hard
Yeah.
keys was weekly.
Yeah, that's, I think you might have it backwards.
No, I think it was hard keys are daily. Right? Yeah, and card keys are weekly. So the card key, which is harder to keep track of, you only get it for that day and bring it back every evening.
Well, I personally don't have a problem if they issue that for a week. I don't know if anybody else does.
The hard key.
Yeah.
So to return each.
I don't see why we couldn't be consistent between the two, I guess. is my point.
The fear was just that over a week, do they lose it? Yeah. So, and one thing that happens a lot, a contractor will take a key, go do his thing, the plumber shows up the next day to work and needs, and the contractor. So, car keys is not a big deal. We can make another car key. We have one car key, the contractors.
Okay. Makes sense to me. You guys have to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay, and then we're not going to touch the Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve rule because we're just going to leave it the way it is.
Yep.
And then change to no work will be performed outside of the allowed times of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. No work is allowed on Sundays or on weekends or holidays. So. And the maintenance department has the authority to adjust these parameters if necessary. The reason I put parameters in there is so that if in fact there is just a crazy situation where Dave and Gary agree that, yep, we're gonna let you have a Saturday deal, just work. That's up to them, but since they have the authority to change that, just for crazy one-offs.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. You could have weather incident, you have all kinds of things that are almost finished with their part.
Yep.
Okay.
Scott, this is Eric. I'll have to say I cannot hear any of this. Steve is just too far from the mic to pick up any of what's going on. I don't know whether he wants to move closer or whether he wants to just email real quickly what he's revised.
Let me email it.
To summarize, basically, the policy was revised for the 8 to 5 during the week. Weekends are still off, are still unavailable, as well as holidays. Keys, both card keys are issued for a week. Hard keys are issued and returned daily. Dave's comments relative to the hard keys was that there's multiple contractors in and out of units, and sometimes one contractor will leave with a key and another contractor will show up the next day and can't get in. So we'll continue with that.
It's a confident to get there.
Yeah, so he just emailed it to you, Eric, but just in case everybody else couldn't hear also.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, can I get a copy as well for the minutes?
What's that?
Ron McLennan wants to call.
Okay, yeah.
Can I get a copy for the minutes?
He sent it to the whole board, Ron.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I think we need a motion. Do you have any comments before? I think we've already addressed this earlier, so I don't know that we'll have comments, but okay, no comments. So motion to accept the revised changes as read by Steve.
So moved.
Greg?
Second.
Okay, we got Greg with a motion, Rick with a second. Any other comments from the board? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 5. Boyd and Eric.
Yes, I said that.
Oh, okay, we got Boyd. Eric, you good?
He's probably reading his email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, but that's fine. Yeah, it's not here yet.
Okay. All right.
It carried anywhere.
It carried anyway, so, right. Unpaid assessments, notice and policy. We did that earlier. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So that's all done. All right, so we move on to unfinished business. We can take a break or we can just trudge through this. I'm good with trudging.
I could use a
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
bathroom break. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
I've been drinking coffee.
That's fine. 5-minute break and we're gonna get rolling again.
So I better take my mask on.
Okay.
So all we've got is unfinished business and new business. So if anybody has anything they want addressed in new business that's not on the agendas, please feel free to message that in.
Scott,
Yeah.
This is
what are we
Eric.
going to
I think you've already got it. I just want to make sure it doesn't slip away, and that's obviously September of board elections.
No, I just.
Yeah, we've got it on here. We're going to cover that in new business.
That's what I.
Yep, great.
If you were, I had nothing else on there, but I gotta run down to PJ's, pick up sandwiches, bring it up for you guys. So sandwiches will be here around noon.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah.
I need just probably a minute or two to do the update on the Nest door locks, which we decided to put on as old business.
Okay.
It'll take about a minute and a half.
I don't.
Yeah, no problem.
You can get
Thanks.
on the table.
That didn't make the agenda, but it's on.
I have it down in the office. Don't have to.
Thanks for the reminder.
Sure.
All right.
So where's your
Starting
mic-
back up.
Where's your microphone, Gary?
Ron, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just
Where's
making
your
sure.
microphone?
What do you mean?
It's in the middle of the table.
There's
Okay.
2 on the table.
So Ron, why don't we start with the Nest update first? The Nest
Okay.
doorbell camera device update.
All right.
It was
Ready?
You know the Nest doorbell with the
Ring.
cameras?
Well,
Ring,
there's
Nest.
one called Nest.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
You ready?
Yep.
We've had a couple questions from some owners on using the Nest door system, which basically operates off the internet. It provides video as well as audio. You can talk to someone even if you're not at home. Of course, if you're at home, you can still talk to them electronically without having to open the door. So as we normally do, we sent this over to legal to see what they thought, and I got about 4 pages of information back. And some of the concerns that they've got, one being is that the information that's being recorded, if you look at putting something like this in the lodge, it's a little more unique than the other buildings, the outlying areas. In the lodge, if I had the door lock on my door, then it looks, of course, right in front of my door, but also would look across the hall at the adjacent door. So that's one issue there, is what's being recorded and making sure that people know they're recorded. So the first thing that Christina mentioned is that we want to probably look at having put signs up on the floors where people have these locks and let people know that they are being recorded. I told her we've been through a bunch of issues with signs before, and really we're trying to keep the number of signs down, but it's a valid point and one that we would want to consider. The second issue is that you can talk to people through the door handle as well. And depending on how the volume is set, that could be very loud, it could be very disturbing, or it could be very low. The person has the opportunity to raise or lower the volume as possible, but they were concerned about noise complaints. If I came up to your door and you're in Los Angeles, I could stand there literally and talk to you for as long as we wanted to have a conversation. Me being in the hallway and you being in Los Angeles. So there's some issues there with noise. And then the other issue she had is, Christina had, was how would we manage where these are installed? We have that issue right now with sometimes people putting things in that they shouldn't put in. But the issue I think that she was trying to raise was there could be damage to the door. There's wiring issues. You have to make sure you got the proper electrical components in the door itself. If that's not there, then we're going to take the door frame off. We're going to adjust holes in the wall. It really gets complicated. So my recommendation at this point in time would be that we table this, maybe get some more information. I'd like to get some additional information from what other condo places are doing. What's the business plan as far as what their standard is, if they do indeed have these. Now, for the outlying areas, some of these concerns aren't quite as rampant. But again, there's still some concerns depending on how each area is set up, that you could hear what is being recorded, or that you would be part of that recording as well, not knowing when you come and go from your place each time that is being recorded. So I think we got some issues that we need to look at, but I'd like to get some idea from the community, if they are using them, other condo units, if they are using them, how do you address these legal issues and go from there. I don't think at this point we've got enough information to really make a good decision.
Okay. So just for everyone's benefit, just to summarize, I mean, we had a request from a couple of owners, and while we recognize that the technology's out there and it certainly comes in handy, I know I can't hardly go to a house in Houston anymore. If I go to a buddy's house or anything, it seems like everybody has these silly things. I personally do not. That being said, we're not really single-family residents. We're not in any way, shape, or form single-family residents. And the summaries received back from legal are problematic enough that I don't think we're comfortable moving forward at this stage in approving any of these things. They're a convenience, and I get it, and certainly there is a security element to them, and I get that too. But there's also a lot of concerns relative to privacy issues in the recording and other things. They certainly will not work in the lodge. That's just a given. But I think we'd like to get any input we can back from owners, especially those that might live in condos, outside of Tamarron, on how they're handled there. Right now, there were more red flags than comfort from legal, and our feeling was it just didn't make sense to approve them at this juncture. Any comments, discussion from the board? Anything from the folks online?
Scott, I think that's the right path. I personally would maybe support some kind of a small monkey survey of the ownership, just to see what, maybe when we get a position that we feel more comfortable with, putting that out there for a wider audience to provide some feedback as well.
Yeah, I don't have any issue at all doing a survey monkey. I'm intrigued by them. I mean, I looked at my unit, where my unit is at. If there was one on the front door, it wouldn't likely offend or affect anybody. But not every unit is situated in the same way. So we have to make a decision for the community, and can't do it one by one. So I think that is a logical way to do it. So we can do a survey monkey.
Okay.
Any other comments? I saw one from Dawn but I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing.
My comment was just, I think this is one of those things where it might be taken into consideration whether it's in the lodge or outside the lodge, because I think not everything can be treated equally when we compare the two.
Yeah, and believe me, we're in complete agreement there. The challenge is how are the lodge, not every outlying unit is situated in the same manner. As I said, my outlying unit, you could stick a camera on the front and you probably wouldn't capture anything but cars going by. And you wouldn't even capture those because I sit up pretty high. But another unit, you're going to see a lot more traffic. You might see individuals, front doors. So I think we just need to look at it a little more closely. And I'd like to hear how other associations are doing it.
And a lot of outlying units have common decks, common stairs. So you're going to see other people coming and going to their units, and that may not be looked upon well. I think there's just too many, those cameras. I've got a Ring system at my house in Scottsdale, and the cameras, you can selectively narrow the range, narrow the view on them. But how do you know whether anybody's doing that? They're typically set for a pretty wide fisheye view, and so.
What was the reason?
Well, the one person that had asked, I think had I don't know if it's a CNA or CNS unit, but they couldn't necessarily hear people knocking on the door upstairs. But if they had the camera, they would be able to see somebody on the camera. and they just said it would help them. And I get that.
Well, we don't have any problem with, I mean, regular doorbells. We don't have any problem with that.
No.
I mean, you can buy a doorbell, a wireless doorbell that has a button on the outside. I have one in my unit in 843. It has a button on the outside and a battery-powered receiver that you could put downstairs, and they could ring that bell and you'd hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think just from a vacations rental standpoint, that would freak people out.
Yeah.
Watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's a security thing, I mean, that's why we have the Onity keys, the door locks are readable.
And there are some legal aspects that come into play there. If you're recording it, you're recording people. I know, we require people sign disclosures if we're going to record a closing transaction, for example. So, okay. I think we addressed all the comments there. So,
Thank you.
all right. Lien holder survey. So, just to frame this up, make sure everybody understands, when we did the revision of the governing documents, that revision required changes to the lien holder notification requirements, basically acknowledging that owners that do have liens against their properties, i.e. mortgages, needed to provide contact information for their servicers. So in the event we had a catastrophic issue at Tamarron that required a vote or required input from ownership, that lien holders would be notified of that. And that language was added to the agreement that was subsequently recorded. As part of that, we sent out notifications to everyone asking for lien holder information in the form of a survey, and Steve's going to share the results of that and kind of tell us where we're at.
Actually, I did the lien holder stuff. He did the insurance.
You did the insurance.
Yeah. I reported on this at the last meeting, and basically, with the COVID situation and everything else, there's been no change. We still need to, we contacted 298 owners. 223 of those completed responses. 249 opened the survey and gave it back a response. We do need to follow up some of those. We find that we've got about 28% of the units on property have some sort of a mortgage lien on them. And 72% indicated they have no mortgage lien. So we still need to follow up with the people who either partially responded or didn't respond. And now that I'm here in the summer and Tamarron's in my face every day, I'll get after that and we'll get that taken care of.
Okay.
So hopefully by the
You'll
fall.
need something to do here.
Yeah.
And then the next item is the insurance, which I think everybody is aware where you're required to have insurance on your units, and we're trying to keep track of it.
Did you want to talk about electric charging station?
I skipped by some.
Yep.
That's why I keep want to take my glasses
Yep. The charging station the grant was applied for on May 15th with Alicia's contact information. So she can go back and once she's got her official email and swap that information out. But she's going to be the contact. Dave is the secondary contact. They're still telling us that the application period ends June 15th, and then after that point in time, they may get back to us with some follow-up questions. I've gone through the whole application with Alicia, and so she knows where there's little potholes that may need to get filled in. So on June 15th, they may. I don't imagine that there's any money out there for this project right now, with federal government and state government being billions of dollars in debt. So, but who knows?
Should all be separate files.
Yeah, it should have been.
Yeah. So anyway, if the file's still there, we're in good shape to get the $9,000 to go forward. The electrics in, or the conduits in for the electric to go out there. The holes ready. The contractors raring to go. So
that covers half our cost of the.
About half.
Half our cost of the device itself.
Yep.
And the installation of it.
Yeah.
We still have a fairly significant cost. It's going to cost us total about $15,000 to do the whole project if we get the grant.
No, it costs us. The grant's given us $9,000, and there's $76.85.
I went over this with Dave yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our total cost, including what we have to contribute towards the charging station, is going to be, now part of that's going to be handled by the irrigation line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but it's going to cost us in excess of 10,000
Yeah.
to do it.
And then you're gonna have, and it's a pay as you go. If the charging station, once it's installed, shouldn't be costing us any money.
Yeah, it's a two user station.
Right,
There's a mobile phone app. So if you plug your car in order to get the juice to flow, you have to go into the app and say, here I am, and it charges you for the electricity, not the HOA.
and then for $2,000 more, you get a 5-year maintenance agreement. So they come up and maintain the thing, so we don't have to touch it.
And did you talk about the location of it?
Yeah, it's going to be where you see the hole is now at the end of the new asphalt.
It's right there in front of the parking island, to the right of the portico, just to the left front of the portico as you're looking at it.
Yeah, and a 20-foot cable will get 3 parking spots. So if the person's done charging, he doesn't even have to move his car. The next person over can charge their car. So.
2 can charge at once.
2 can charge at once, but there's 3 spaces that it's accessible.
I think we need to decide how many spaces we want to tie up. You could tie up as many as 4 parking places to do this. But I don't know if you want to tie up.
Well, we're going to have to.
With the amount of usage there is, the amount of people who would use it, I think initially tying up 2 spaces.
I think 2, and we're probably going to have to put some signage and stuff.
Yeah. Just like you see in a grocery store parking lot, parking only for electric vehicle charging.
Yeah.
So moving on to evidence, insurance.
I'm sorry, Steve, this is Eric. Just one last question. Is this limited to our owners only?
No, it's a public device.
So anybody can come in off of 550 and park in our spaces and use our charging station?
Yeah.
At their own expense?
Yeah, at their own expense. Yep.
We couldn't restrict that to.
That's not what the grant said.
The grant says you got to open it to the public.
It's open.
You got to let the public use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, $9,000, that's worth it.
Yeah. So insurance evidence. So we're down to 6 owners and 9 properties. We'll be slapping those owners around until I leave. So we'll get those.
You're down to that few, huh?
Yeah.
Single digits.
Yeah, I'm down to this one woman owns 3. She's in Texas, and now I'm calling her at 7:30 in the morning, and I'm going to get earlier and earlier until she's only picked up once in 15 phone calls.
I think I know who it is.
Yeah, Coogan.
Yeah.
So she's ornery, and of course, once I got her on the phone, oh yeah, I'll get that to you tomorrow.
Hey, Steve, you're being recorded, and you're on open mic here.
Okay. All right, so we're down to very, very, very few.
Okay. Any other unfinished business that I missed? Okay. New business. Let's talk about the election to kick it off. So everybody is aware, we have a election coming up in September. As I mentioned earlier, we don't know what the hell the board meeting is going to look like. We'll cross that bridge later. Joe's going to provide a quick summary, but before we do that, there's a few comments up here. Let me just hit those. No one is charging. Will spaces be available for use? Alan, I guess
you have to reserve.
Yeah, I think
you have to reserve those spaces for charging only.
Yeah, I think that the grant requires that we reserve them. So we'll have to be crossing that bridge when we get to it, obviously. But we're going to put signs on it and say they're reserved for the electric charging station. And then David. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So just to update David, Steven's leaving. He turned in his notice to me about 45 days ago, 30 days ago. He's leaving to go back to California. We've hired Elisa Olliger. Did I say it right? Olliger. Screwed it up again.
Yeah.
Elisa has been our accountant for 18 years. She accepted the position. It started 2 weeks ago. We revised the role slightly in that she is her job description is business manager. In essence, she will be handling all business operations outside of maintenance. Obviously, Dave is still here for maintenance, and we'll be looking to work with Dave to hire that replacement, over the course of the next year or two. So that's what you missed. All right, back to election.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a proposed schedule of key dates for our election process. Right now, we have 2 board members who are ending terms in September. Greg Collins and Rick Hughes. Greg is eligible to run for a first elected term. He was an appointee for a resigned board member 2 years ago. Rick is ending his first elected term and is eligible to run for a second elected term. We need to see how they let us know in the next short time what their intentions are, so owners know in terms of nominations and so forth, how they may affect that. So if we're in terms of a timeline, end of June, around the 29th of June, we need to get a letter out, or by that date, we need to get a letter out with information about the election, including a deadline for nominations. So basically a solicitation for nominations letter. We do this every year, and asking owners who may be interested to submit their names or submit other owners' names for nomination, and submit at that time also submit resumes of qualifications and a letter of why they want to run for the board. And then a deadline again around mid-July for submittal of those nominations in writing, and then around the end of July, having all the ballots and annual meeting information, notices and return envelopes, etc., returned from the printer. And then the first week of August, we'll get the packets stuffed and mailed out to the owners with the balloting and annual meeting information, such as it is. We hope that by then we'll know how we're going to handle the annual meeting given the pandemic situation. And then a deadline for ballot submittal, ballots to be received on or about September 9th. And then September 11th, the annual meeting where the election would be held. And I'll get this to you, Ron, so you have it as an attachment to the meeting minutes.
All right, any questions, comments on that? So as I said, the board meeting, under our bylaw, under our governing documents, we're required to have the board meeting at the second Friday of September.
Second Friday in September.
So that's still the plan, whether that is remote or it is in person or limited in any way. We'll just continue to kind of monitor and make decisions later on how that's going to play out.
Yeah, John threw out a few things to think about, whether if the meeting is not done in person, how do we handle the generally significant number of people that hand in their ballots right there at the meeting? Yeah. So people would need to know probably fairly well ahead of time if the meeting is not going to be held in person, that they would need to mail their ballots in or somehow or other submit them.
Okay. Well, this might be a good time. I did have discussions with Christina last year about changing the balloting process. It would be a bylaw change if I remember correctly.
You mean go mail in only?
No, go away from mail in, have other options.
Have other options.
Yeah.
Okay.
So might be a time to visit it, just knowing that we don't know what September is going to look like.
Yeah. I think as long as the meeting is always, I think if the meeting is held, then you always want to have the ability for the owners to turn them in at the meeting.
Oh yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
But other methods might be you know. If the meeting is not going to be held, we may not have to have the room over at the Valley Clubhouse. We might be able to do it right here because of, you know, lower attendance. Any meet and greet with candidates, there you go, with social distancing and 10 people or less. If that's still in effect, that would affect that. The hot dog lunch, we don't know whether we'll even have that. The organizational meeting following, and then there's the owners reception that we always have, and the golf tournament.
Yeah.
All of those could be affected by all of this.
Reception, the pairings party,
All of it. And we won't know until we know. So planning may be pushed back and crunched this year more so than previous years.
What I'd like to suggest also is the help last year to put all this together. Kathy was great with restaurant issues, and Gary took the paper portion of all this and then ran with it as well. So I'd like to, again, recommend that we use them if they're agreeable.
Thanks a lot.
We can work around the issues, but certainly use them because they did a great job last year.
There's another little twist now. Since Elisa is now an employee of the association and not a contractual third party working for Elliott Meadows, she was always the person who received the ballots in the mail and tallied who had voted. Of course, not opening the ballots. We did that at the annual meeting. And now that she's an employee of the association, the question came up, should we be looking at another third party? And we've thought to inquire with our legal firm, their admin staff, and see if that's something they would do.
Tommy's admin staff that could.
So we could still do that there? Okay, well, that's good. That's a good, yeah.
And we could still have Michelle come.
And Michelle would still be the third party counter. Yeah. Okay. No,
That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Joe, as you remember too, I mean, we're going back 7-8 years now, but we used to not even have a third party. We'd had a committee of interested owners who counted the ballots.
Correct.
Yep.
All right. Any other new business? Last two items on the agenda are repeated, so we don't have to go through those again.
I think we'll probably, the way things are going, we'll probably have a pretty good idea by the end of June.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Okay. I don't see any comments for anything new on the chat board. So we are going to break for executive session. I will tell you that we don't have any other business in executive session that I'm aware of that will require us to come back and do anything formal. So we'll likely to come back and adjourn.
Have been recorded and
I don't think we need to record our adjourning. I'm just telling everybody that we're going to come back at some point, somewhere probably around 1 o'clock, and adjourn the meeting. But for all intents and purposes, we don't really have anything else to cover because most of the things in executive session are not anything we have to come back and vote on. None of them.
And we'll note the time that we leave.
Yep.
Gary, are you
Okay,
shut
Chris
down this
has a
meeting?
question.
Have the board members relog on, or if I can do that.
Chris, do you have a
I'll shut
question?
this down and we can log on again, but we'd have to give a different number, different meeting number, ID number. Have to send that out.
Yes, and the number out.
Okay.
Might want to take
So
a,
Chris has a question. When people are moving out or change unit, we notice people leaving furniture in common areas of the lodge. Gary, I don't know anything about that. People leaving crap laying around?
They're not supposed to do it.
where are they
happens-
leaving it?
Huh?
Where are they leaving it?
Well,
Hallways?
Fourth floor has a white chair that is just sitting there. That's what it says there.
So somebody dumped it in the lobby? Is that it?
Sounds like it.
Well, I don't know. He says second tower. There are people who will call down and they say, I've got this stuff. Do you know anybody who wants it? We'll ask around the staff. If I know of any owners who are looking for something, I'll give them a call. But very, very seldom do we have takers on stuff. And yeah, sometimes people leave the stuff.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to do it.
So we don't know.
But if somebody leaves a chair and then walks out
Yeah, that's right.
and they're gone, we wind up taking the chair, putting it down. We'll see if, make a call to Humane Society, see if they will take it. If not, it gets tossed out.
You have to dispose of it somehow.
And,
I guess the only way to solve that is to catch somebody doing it, but
yeah,
how do you do that?
yeah, for the most part.
Go back and look at a camera.
You can't. But, well, even here, he's saying this is the central tower, 4th floor. There's no camera up there.
Okay.
So, you know.
I mean, sure, I get that it's something we don't want to see, but
Yeah. So much
it's hard to police it. Yeah.
All right, Jerry, to answer your question on the charging station, we expect to hear back from the state somewhere around June 15th. And that will define the timing of any purchase installation thereafter. Any other questions, comments? I think that's all.
I'm sorry, Scott. This is Eric. Since Jerry raised the question, we were talking at one point about sharing this with Glacier. Is that fallen by the wayside?
Yes.
Because we're doing the grant.
And I think they went ahead and applied independent of us for a grant as well. Because they were talking about already moving. When we were up here in January, they were already moving forward and getting bids from contractors.
Yeah, then there's this public also.
Right.
If they get a grant.
Right.
If they don't get a grant, they just do it privately, then they can keep it private,
And they
right?
could use ours.
Good.
Okay. Well, Chris, I see your comment on a notice. We can certainly
Notice what?
notice
moving out.
to tell just a notice reminding people that if they're moving out, don't leave.
You can put that in an e-blast.
Yeah. Okay.
One of your e-blasts. Append it to one of your e-blasts.
All right. Looks like I see people logging off, so we're going to go ahead and break. We got executive session here, and thanks everyone for joining.
The board
Stay
members.
healthy, stay safe, and board members, we will be sending you a new GTM. Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll get a new GTM. Or they can just dial in, can't they? Oh, we have.
Well, they can do it. Do a new G.
Okay, we'll just do a new GTM.
Yeah. Boyd